Yo, what's good everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. So, sorry about the lack of uploads recently. Your boys had COVID for the last week. It hasn't been fun, but yeah, I'm getting there. Daily videos will resume soon, so thanks for being patient. Anyway, I've got a pretty funny yet crazy story time to tell you today, and it's about the time I got detained in the back of a cop car and almost sent to jail for no reason. Hope you enjoy it. Leave a like on the video if you do, and let's get into it. So, today's story time starts off as a regular day back in 2017. I was visiting my hometown for Christmas, catching up with family and friends. It was cool. The whole week that I was there was really nice. Celebrated Christmas, spent time with my loved ones, and everything was going smoothly. This story takes place 2 days after Christmas, and it was actually the day before I was supposed to fly back to LA, where I was living at the time. My friends hit me up and were like, yo, Austin, come out with us one last time before you leave. Let's go to a bar, have some fun. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, sounds good. So I got ready, took a shower, and headed out with them. Now, I didn't know what to expect, but I did have a couple of expectations. I honestly thought it was going to be dead. I figured most people would be staying in with their families, being that it was still the holiday season. But boy, was I wrong. When we got to the bar, it was packed. I mean, this place was absolutely full of people. It was probably over capacity. Everyone and their cousin must have been there that night. The music was blasting, people were dancing, and the place had an overall wild energy. I was all for it though. I thought, alright, let's have a good time. I wasn't 21 yet at the time, but the bar did this teen night thing, which is honestly kind of crazy if you think about it. Basically, if you're 18 and over, you could come in, but you couldn't drink. So I was there with my friends who were all 21, and I was just chilling, sitting at our table while they drank. I could have tried to sneak a drink or two, but I didn't want to risk it. They'd throw you out and call the cops if they caught you. It wasn't worth it. So we're there, me and my friends, hanging out, enjoying ourselves. I had smoked a bit before coming out, so I was feeling pretty good. The vibe was great. We were having a good time, enjoying the music, just kicking it one last time before I had to head back to LA. Then, out of nowhere, I noticed a crowd forming in the middle of the bar. It looked like one of those classic circles that form when two people are about to fight. I tap my friend's shoulder and I'm like, yo, look over there. I think there's a fight about to happen. My friends look over, and sure enough, there are three dudes in each other's faces, looking like they're about to throw down. I get up to get a better view, and as I get closer, two more people jump in. Now it's like five dudes all shoving each other, talking shit, and it's only a matter of seconds before someone throws a punch. And sure enough, one of the guys swings, and it turns into a full-on brawl. Then, four more people jump in, friends of the original guys, and now it's a full-blown 10-person fight. It was like a fucking mosh pit in there, just absolute chaos. I step back and head back to our table. My friends are standing on their chairs to get a better view, just watching this whole thing unfold. One of my friends turns to me and says, yo, Austin, one of those guys kinda looks like you. And he wasn't kidding. One of the dudes in the fight was wearing a similar jacket, similar pants, and had a similar build and hair color. From a distance, I could see how someone might mistake him for me. Anyway, the fight goes on for about 2 minutes before the bouncers finally break it up. The cops get called, and they show up almost immediately. They must have already been posted up on the street since it was a busy area with a lot of bars. Two cop cars pull up, and the cops rush in, starting to detain people. Out of nowhere, one of the cops points at me and yells, "You, get over here!" I thought he wanted my side of the story since I was just a bystander. So, I walk over to him, and immediately, he grabs me by the wrist, turns me around, and fucking handcuffs me. He starts escorting me out of the bar, and my friends jump up, yelling, "Yo, you got the wrong guy. That's not him. He wasn't fighting." The cop just ignores them and keeps walking me out. He shoves me into the back of the cop car, slams the door, and now I'm just sitting there, handcuffed, about to be taken to jail for something I didn't even do. I see my friends outside the car, arguing with the cop, but I can't hear anything because the car is pretty soundproof. I just see them waving their hands and pointing at me, clearly trying to tell the cop he made a mistake. After about 5 or 10 minutes, I see the cop dragging another guy out of the bar in handcuffs, the guy who actually looked like me. The cop brings him over to the car, opens the door, and gets me out. He puts the other guy in the car and looks at me saying, "Listen, I'm so sorry. I thought you were him. You matched the description. You look just like him. I'm really sorry." I was just like, "It's fine, just please uncuff me." So, he uncuffs me, apologizes again, and my friend, who was standing nearby, goes, "I fucking told you, man. You had the wrong guy." The cop, clearly annoyed, says, "Don't get smart with me. All of you leave. You're all free to go." Without hesitation, we got the hell out of there. We walked back to my friend's house and just chilled there for the rest of the night. I was so relieved because I almost went to jail for a fight that I had absolutely nothing to do with. I mean, I know they probably would have figured it out eventually, but I didn't want to go through that. Even what I did go through was highly annoying. So, yeah, moral of the story. Try not to look like guys that get into fights a lot, I guess. I just happen to look a lot like this dude, and I wish I had a video of it so I could show you because from a distance, it was kinda similar. I could see why they made the mistake, but still, getting put in cuffs for no reason is never fun. Anyway, that's the story of how I got detained for absolutely no reason. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here. Or Luna. Today's story time is one for the books and honestly, it's pretty insane. This happened just a few hours ago, so it's fresh as hell and I knew I had to hop on here and tell you guys about it. If you enjoy this one, make sure to leave a like on the video and let's get into this crazy story. So, today's story time takes place literally earlier today. I had woken up decently early, which for me is a big win because usually I'm waking up way later than I should be. I was chilling in bed, scrolling through my phone, not really doing anything, just soaking up the laziness, you know? After a bit of that, I decided to get up, take a shower, and slowly get my day started. You know those mornings where everything is just moving in slow motion, but it feels right? Yeah, it was one of those. After that, I sat down at my desk, fired up my computer, and started working on a YouTube video. It was supposed to go up today, but as you'll soon find out, that didn't exactly happen. I was about halfway through making this video, really in the zone, when my phone started buzzing. It was my homie Justin calling me. Now, I've known Justin since 6th grade. We go way back. We don't talk every single day, but when he does hit me up, it's either something absolutely ridiculous or he wants to catch up like old times. So, Justin's calling and I'm thinking, okay, I better answer this. He doesn't call me much, so it's probably important. I pick up, and before I can even say hello, Justin's like, yo, are you there? I'm like, yeah man, what's good? He goes, dude, are you free today? When can I come over? I gotta show you something. Now I'm sitting there, a little confused because he sounds way too hyped. I ask him, dude, are you okay? Like, is everything alright? And he's like, no, it's more than alright. You're gonna fucking love this. I need to come over today. At this point, I'm intrigued but also a little nervous. I mean, the guy sounded like he just downed a whole case of energy drinks, and he was being all mysterious about whatever he wanted to show me. So, I tell him, alright man, when do you want to come over? And he says, when can I? I say, I'm free now I guess. He says, bet, text me your address, I'm on my way. Before hanging up, I try one more time like, yo, can you just give me a hint? You're kind of freaking me out. He just laughs and says, nah dude, just trust me, you're gonna love it. And then he hangs up. So now I'm just sitting there, staring at my phone thinking, what the hell did I just agree to? I started running through all the possibilities in my head. Maybe he found out one of our old friends won the lottery, or maybe he somehow domesticated penguins and brought them back from Antarctica. I had no clue what to expect, but I was curious as hell. 10 minutes later, I hear a car absolutely tearing up my driveway, tires screeching. I look out the window and it's Justin. He jumps out of his car, slams the door, and just sprints up to my front door. No knocking, no nothing, just barges in, runs up the stairs, and finds my office. He bursts in like, yo, what's good? I dab him up and I'm like, bro, are you okay? You look like you're about to explode. What is so urgent? And he just starts laughing, like full on maniacal laughter. I'm sitting there, getting even more nervous now, like, alright, seriously, what's going on? And he's like, bro, you're not gonna believe this. I don't think anything can prepare you for what I'm about to show you. I'm like, okay, let's see it then. He points at the office chair next to mine like, can I sit down? I say, yeah, sure. He sits down, pulls out his phone, and starts typing something in. I look over and he's typing in onlyfans.com. I look at him with this look of pure confusion like, dude, really? And he's like, no, trust me, you're gonna want to see this. I'm sitting there, thinking, what in the actual fuck is this guy about to show me? I had a few guesses. Maybe someone we knew made an OnlyFans. Maybe it was someone from high school. Or maybe, worst case scenario, Justin made one. I really hoped it wasn't the last one. Thankfully, it wasn't the last one. But when he pulled up the profile, I was still not prepared for what I saw. It was my 7th grade teacher. Yeah, you heard that right. My 7th grade teacher, one of my favorite teachers from that year. I just stared at the screen in disbelief. I was like, no fucking way. Justin's like, right? Didn't I tell you that you wouldn't see this coming? I was like, how did you even find this? Then I looked closer at the profile and noticed something even funnier. Justin was subscribed to her, $30 a month. I looked at him like, bro, are you serious? You're subscribed? He just shrugged like, yeah, I wanted to see what was on it. I called him a pervert, but I was curious too, so I was like, alright, hand it over. Let me see. I just had to know what she was doing on there. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping she was using it for something random, like posting cooking videos or some niche hobby, but nope. She was using it for exactly what you'd expect. It was all 18 plus content, and to make it even crazier, it was like teacher themed roleplay stuff. I mean, it wasn't even roleplay, she was an actual teacher. And the wildest part? She was getting a ton of likes on her posts, like almost 1,000 likes on some of them. $30 a month, 1,000 likes. Do the math. She was making bank. I handed Justin his phone back and I was like, dude, that's insane. He goes, I know, right? I asked him when he found out about this and he told me he stumbled upon it this morning. I was like, how? He hesitated for a second and then he was like, alright, so this morning I was, a little worked up and I was scrolling through Reddit and I found it on a subreddit where girls promote their OnlyFans. I just stared at him like, bro, at 8 in the morning, you're out here subscribing to OnlyFans at 8 a.m.? How much are you even spending on this saru? He tried to brush it off like, not that much, I wasn't buying it. I was like, let me see your subscriptions. He tried to argue, but eventually he handed me his phone. I started scrolling through and man, this dude was spending like $1,000 a month on subscriptions. I looked at him and I was like, Justin, we need to have an intervention. 1,000 a month? That's rent money. He didn't believe me at first, but after adding it all up, he just looked at me, shocked like, dude, I'm actually spending $1,000 a month. I was like, yeah, no see you, man. He immediately started unsubscribing from a bunch of people and I couldn't help but crack up. After that, we just hung out for a while, laughed about the whole thing, and then he took off. I went back to working on my video, but I knew I had to tell you guys about this. I mean, what are the odds that your 7th grade teacher ends up on OnlyFans? And apparently she's making so much money that she quit her job. I confirmed that with a friend who still works at the school. She quit a few weeks ago, so yeah, she's officially a former teacher now, just out there living her best life. Obviously, I'm not going to go around telling people about this. It's her business and she's allowed to do whatever she wants. I'm not naming names and I'm definitely not going to be the one to blow up her spot. But damn, what a crazy discovery. And Justin, if you're watching this, bro, what you're spending, $1,000 a month is wild. Anyway, that's the story. I thought it was funny, crazy, and worth sharing. If you guys enjoyed this story time, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So today's story time is a pretty good one. Definitely a crazy one in my opinion. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, leave a like on the video and let's get into it. Alright, so today's story takes place in 2017. I was visiting my hometown in New York from LA. I had been living in LA for a while at this point, but I came back home for the holidays to spend some time with my family. Every time I'd come back to visit, I'd make a plan to see both my family and my old friends. I'd usually stay for a couple of weeks, so I had plenty of time to do both. This all starts off as a regular Saturday night. I had already spent the first week of my trip hanging out with my mum and dad, seeing my family, just catching up with them. But now the weekend had hit, and it was time to see my old friends from my hometown. We had plans to hit up a party that night, and I was pretty hyped. Now, at this time, weed in New York was still very much illegal, like not even close to being legalized and definitely frowned upon by the police. But coming from LA, where weed was completely legal and basically a part of daily life, I had kind of forgotten how serious it still was in New York. I ended up buying some weed that night to take with me to the party. I was chilling at my Airbnb, had just picked up an eighth, and I was sitting there in the living room, putting my shoes on, getting ready to go out and meet my friends. The party was only about half a mile away from my Airbnb, so it was an easy walk, even though it was cold as fuck outside. I figured, you know what, I'll just walk. I didn't want to make my friends come pick me up, and it wasn't far enough to need an Uber or anything like that. So I got up, put on my jacket, grabbed my phone, wallet, keys, and the weed, and I started walking to the party. While I was walking, I texted my friends, "Hey guys, be there in about 15 minutes. See y'all soon." One of them replied, "Can't wait to see you, daddy." Yeah, don't ask why, he's just a little sus sometimes, but that's my boy. Anyway, I was on my way to the party, and I was about halfway there, feeling good, almost there. I had to cross a street and then take a right, and from there, it was a straight shot to the house where the party was. So I turned right and started crossing the street. Now, here's the thing. Apparently there was a crosswalk just a little down the road, but I didn't see it. I wasn't paying attention, and I jaywalked right across the street. And of course, because my luck is just that great, there happened to be a cop right there. I jaywalked directly in front of a cop car without even realizing it. As soon as he saw me, he flicked his lights on, and I was like, "Ah, fuck." He put his window down and yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" I turned around startled and was like, "Oh, I'm just crossing the street, man." He pointed towards the crosswalk and said, "Don't you see the crosswalk? It's right there, damn it." And I was like, "Shit, I didn't see it, my bad." But he wasn't done. This cop leaves his lights on, gets out of his car, and starts walking towards me. He's doing all of this in the middle of traffic, causing a damn traffic jam, which is probably more dangerous than anything I was doing. But whatever, I just stood there, waiting for him. He walked up to me and started chewing me out again. "You really didn't see the crosswalk? It's right there. I don't believe you." He was clearly not having a good day, and I was just trying to stay cool. I said, "I swear I didn't see it. If I had, I would have used it. I'm not trying to jaywalk on purpose." He wasn't buying it. He kept going. "Even if you thought it was clear you should have waited, you walked right in front of my cruiser." At this point, I was just nodding along saying, "Yeah, I know, I'm sorry." He asked me where I was heading and I told him, "There's a party just up the road. I'm walking there right now." He asked which street and I told him. Then he hit me with, "How old are you?" I said, 19. And he goes, "You don't have a car at 19? Just straight up roasted me. I was like, no, I live in LA, so I don't really need one." He rolled his eyes and asked, "Then why are you in New York if you live in LA? I explained that I was visiting family, that I grew up just a few minutes away from here. Then he sniffed the air and said, "What's that smell?" And that's when my stomach dropped. I knew exactly what he was talking about. I had forgotten for a moment that I wasn't in LA anymore, where weed was whatever. Here in New York, they actually gave a shit. I reeked of weed because I had an eighth in my hoodie pocket and it was just stinking up the place. I tried to play dumb. "What smell?" He looked at me like I was an idiot and said, "You smell like pot. Do you have any on you?" I hesitated, then said, "No, I don't think so." Which, in hindsight, was the stupidest fucking thing I could have said. Like, "I don't think so? What does that even mean?" He wasn't having it. "You don't think so?" He gave me one more chance. "I'm going to give you one last chance to be honest. Do you have weed on you or not?" I sighed and said, "Yeah, I do." He told me to pull it out, so I reached into my hoodie and handed it to him. He looked at it and said, "You understand this is illegal here, right? I know you're from LA, but here it's still illegal." I nodded and said, "I know, I'm sorry. It helps me relax and I don't really like to drink, so I smoke." He didn't care. "I don't care what you like or don't like, it's illegal here." I kept nodding, trying to stay respectful, even though inside I was getting pissed off. This guy was being a real asshole. He went on this whole 5-minute rant about how weed is illegal in New York, how I was breaking the law, how this wasn't California, and I needed to wise up and act like an adult. I just stood there, nodding along, saying, "Yeah, I know, I'm sorry." Finally, he wrapped up his speech and said, "Don't jaywalk again. If I catch you jaywalking again, I'm giving you a ticket. Have a good night." Then he turned around, got in his car, and drove off, taking my weed with him. So, in the end, I lost my weed and got yelled at for jaywalking. It was pretty fucking annoying. I continued walking to the party, weedless, which sucked. But luckily, my friends had some on them, so I was able to smoke with them. It wasn't the same as having my own, but hey, it worked. Moral of the story: use the crosswalk because you never know when you're going to run into some cop who's having a bad day and wants to take it out on you. Plus, jaywalking can get you hit by a car, so it's probably best to avoid that too. Just be safe, guys. Anyway, yeah, that was my little run-in with the law back in 2017. I hope you guys enjoyed the story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna, coming at you with another story time. Who would have guessed, right? But seriously, today's story is one of the crazier ones I've ever had to share. It's definitely one of those what the actual fuck moments. So if you enjoy it, leave a like on the video and let's jump into it. This all happened about a year ago, maybe a year and a couple of months back, so pretty recent. At that point, things were pretty chill for me. I was in the middle of just doing my regular routine, making videos, working on music, hanging out with friends. Nothing particularly crazy was happening, just enjoying my life. Now, let me introduce you to someone important for this story, my friend Alyssa. I met Alyssa about 3 or 4 years ago at a friend's birthday party. It's funny because we actually went to the same high school, but back then we never really spoke or hung out. She was just someone I saw in the halls from time to time. It was after high school that we became friends, after being properly introduced at that party. It also helped that she was dating one of my good friends at the time, so we ended up hanging out a lot as a group. We became really close, and honestly I always kind of saw her like a little sister. She's only a year younger than me, but she's got that kind of vibe where you feel protective of her. She's always been a little naive, and anytime someone tried to mess with her or take advantage, me and the guys would be there to back her up. She's just that kind of person that you naturally look out for, you know? Anyway, about a year ago, I'm sitting at home, In my room, scrolling through Twitter, doing absolutely nothing, and Alyssa hits me up. She's like, "Yo, what are you doing right now?" I'm like, "Absolutely nothing, just lying in bed, wasting time." Then she says, "What are you doing tonight? You want to go out?" Now, I wasn't really in the mood. She wanted to go to this specific bar that I wasn't a fan of, and I'm not really a bar or club guy to begin with. But she kept insisting, telling me that her new boyfriend was going to be there and that she really wanted me to meet him. She kept saying how I'd like him, which was already kind of giving me a bad feeling. Like, whenever someone overhypes someone like that, it usually ends up being a mess. But for some reason, I just went with it. And eventually I was like, alright, fine, I'll come out. So, fast forward a few hours later, it's night, and we're at the bar. Alyssa's there, a couple of our mutual friends are there, but her new boyfriend hasn't shown up yet. We're all sitting around a table, they've got their drinks, and I'm just sitting there eating fries because, honestly, I didn't feel like drinking that night. We're talking, having a good time, when suddenly the door opens, and in walks someone I recognize immediately. It's our high school history teacher, and not just my history teacher, he taught Alyssa too. Actually, he taught almost everyone at our table. I'm like, "Guys, look, it's Mr. Banks's, blank." And everyone turns around and we're all having the same reaction, like, what the hell is he doing here? And that's when it gets weird. Alyssa jumps up, runs over to him, gives him a huge hug, and then she starts kissing him. The whole table just freezes. We're all staring at each other like, are you seeing what I'm seeing right now? My friend Matt leans over and whispers, "Is Alyssa kissing our history teacher?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think she is." And another girl at the table is just like, "What the actual fuck am I watching right now?" Alyssa comes back to the table holding his hand and she's like, "Guys, you obviously remember Mr. Blank. Well, we're dating now, so you don't have to call him Mr. Bus Blank anymore. Just call him Robert." I'm sitting there stunned like, hi Robert, long time no see. And inside my head, I'm just screaming, what is happening right now? This has to be a joke. Now let me give you some context here. This teacher, Robert, was not a young teacher. He was in his 40s. Alyssa was 22. So yeah, it's legal, but it's still weird as hell. I mean, this was our history teacher. He taught Alyssa when she was 14. He taught all of us when we were teenagers. So yeah, I thought it was creepy as hell. I tapped Alyssa on the shoulder and said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" She's like, "Sure." So we go outside and before I can even say anything, she's like, "I already know what you're going to say. I get it. It's weird. You don't have to say it." I'm like, "You invited all of us out here just to introduce us to our former teacher as your boyfriend? Do you really think this is a good idea? He's 20 years older than you, and he used to be our teacher. Doesn't that seem a little off to you?" She's like, "Yeah, I thought it was weird at first too, but he's been so sweet and we've gone on a bunch of dates and I really like him." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure he's being sweet, but it's still fucking weird. He's 42. You were literally his student." She just rolls her eyes and says, "Austin, I appreciate you looking out for me, but I'm 22. I'm a grown woman. I can make my own decisions." I'm like, if you're a grown woman, then he's a fucking dinosaur about to check into a nursing home. Do you not see how weird this is? She wasn't having it. She just says, "I don't care, I'm not listening to this. Let's go back inside." So we go back inside and she's pissed at me. I'm sitting there thinking, maybe I shouldn't have said anything, but also, this is just too weird. Later on, we're all playing pool. Me, Alyssa, her boyfriend Robert, and the rest of our friends. And it's just so awkward. Like we're literally playing pool with our old history teacher, who's now dating one of our friends. At one point, Alyssa goes to get another drink, and it's just me and Robert at the table. I decide, screw it, I'm gonna ask him. So I pull him aside and say, "Alright man, I gotta know, why her? You could date someone closer to your age, someone you didn't teach in high school. Why Alyssa?" He goes, "I know what you're thinking, and I get it. I thought it was weird at first too, but the more we talked, the more I realized how mature she is for her age." I'm like, "How about you date someone who's mature for their age and also closer to your age?" He's like, "Look, Austin, I don't know what you want me to say. I'm not a creep. I actually care about her." I said, "Well, I care about her too. That's why I'm questioning you. It's just weird, man. You were her teacher. You knew her when she was 14. He just keeps saying, I get it, but we're both adults and it's a mutual thing." I'm like, "Alright, whatever, but I think you're a fucking creep." And I just walked out of the bar because I couldn't take it anymore. It was just too much. About a week goes by and none of us really hear from Alyssa because she's pissed at me for how I acted. All our mutual friends were like, "Yeah, it's weird. We don't like it either." Then another week goes by and out of nowhere Alyssa calls me. I answer and she says, "I'm about to tell you something and I don't want to hear 'I told you so.'" I'm like, "Okay, let me guess. He broke up with you?" She's like, "How did you know?" I said, "Because you literally started the conversation with, 'I don't want to hear I told you so.'" She goes, "Yeah, he dumped me. And guess what? He dumped me for someone even younger." I'm like, "You're joking." She says, "Nope, she's 20. This dude dumped my friend, who was 22, for a 20-year-old. I didn't know if the new girl was a former student or not, but either way, it was fucked up. And they're still dating, by the way. I checked his Facebook before making this video, still together. So yeah, he's definitely a creep in my book. Honestly, all of our friends, including me, were just relieved that he was out of our lives. Alyssa deserved way better than that. And the good news is, a few months later, she found someone else, someone much closer to her age. She's been dating him ever since, and they seem really happy together, so that's all that matters in the end. Moral of the story, don't be like my creepy history teacher. If you're in your 40s, maybe date someone a little closer to your own age. Just a thought. Also, if your friends are telling you something's weird, maybe listen to them, because sometimes the people outside of the situation have the clearest perspective. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, leave a like, I'd appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today I've got a story for you that I thought I had already told years ago, but after searching through my channel, turns out I haven't. So today is finally the day I shared this one with you. I hope you enjoy it, leave a like on the video if you do, and let's get right into it. This story takes us back to my freshman year of high school. For some reason, a lot of my recent stories have been from freshman year. I guess that's just when a lot of the most interesting shit went down. This was about halfway through the year, and it happened on a weekend, specifically a Saturday. It started like any other Saturday. I woke up around noon, happy as hell that I could sleep in. I got up, started my day slowly, just enjoying the lazy weekend vibes. I was especially excited that day because I was going to hang out with my buddy Patrick. Now, Patrick was my main stoner friend at the time. Most of the other people in our friend group either weren't really into smoking weed or just didn't do it much. Patrick though, he was my go-to stoner buddy. We had a plan to match weed, smoke a ton, roam around town, grab some fast food, and just chill. It was the perfect plan for a lazy Saturday. A few hours later, it was finally time to meet up with Patrick. I walked about a mile to his house since he lived pretty close to where my mom and I lived at the time. When I got there, we hung out at his place for a bit, just killing time until his parents left for the day. We decided to head over to a nearby park to smoke since his parents were home, and, well, obviously we couldn't light up in his house. So, we went over to the park and started our little smoke session. Nothing really out of the ordinary happened, everything was good, we were enjoying ourselves. About halfway through the session, Patrick brought up a conversation about our parents and what they thought about weed. He looked over at me and asked, "Yo Austin, what do your parents think about you smoking?" I took a drag, then replied, "Bro, my parents hate it, like, no hesitation. If they catch me with weed, I'm getting grounded on the spot. What about yours?" Patrick shook his head. "Same, man. My mom caught me one time, and I was grounded for a whole fucking month," he said. I nodded. "Damn, that's rough," I said. He continued, "Yeah, that's why we gotta smoke at the park. If we do it anywhere near my house, they'll definitely find out." We smoked for a bit longer at the park, then headed over to Taco Bell for some food. After eating, we walked around town, just enjoying the high and the warm afternoon. Eventually, it was time to head back to Patrick's place. We weren't as high by then, and we didn't smell too much like weed, so we figured his parents wouldn't notice anything. Plus, I was planning to stay the night at Patrick's house, since I didn't really feel like walking home in the cold, even though it was only a mile away. Back at Patrick's place, we were just hanging out in the basement, playing some Call of Duty, doing the usual. It started getting late, and Patrick's parents went to bed. That's when my dumbass had an idea. I looked over at Patrick and said, "Yo, Patrick, after your parents are asleep, what do you think about smoking another bowl? We could do it out of the basement window." He looked at me unsure. "I don't know, man. I've never done that before," he said. I shrugged. "We don't have to. Just an idea," I said. He thought for a moment and then said, "Alright, let's wait until they're definitely asleep and then I'll let you know." I nodded. Bet. A couple of hours later, Patrick's parents were knocked out. Me and Patrick climbed on top of the freezer he had in the basement, opened the small basement window, and lit up. Everything went fine. We smoked, no issues, and we didn't get caught. Not at that moment anyway. Patrick was so high afterward that he passed out on the couch, leaving me stoned out of my mind, playing Call of Duty by myself. I was just sitting there, focused on the game, when about 5 minutes later I heard footsteps. Loud, heavy footsteps coming down the basement stairs. Instantly, my heart dropped. The whole basement reeked of weed. I looked over at Patrick, still dead asleep, and I started panicking. I turned around to see who was coming down the stairs, and sure enough, it was Patrick's mom. She looked pissed, I mean, furious. She walked up to where we were, giving both of us a death stare, even though Patrick was knocked out. She looked at me and asked, "Is Patrick asleep?" I nodded. "Yeah, he just fell asleep like 5 minutes ago. She shook her head, clearly annoyed. "Come upstairs," she said. I stood up, my heart pounding, following her up the stairs. I knew what was coming. She was definitely going to call my mom, have her come pick me up, and then ground Patrick when he woke up. I was fucked. When we got to the kitchen, Patrick's dad was there too. That's when I knew I was really in trouble. She sat me down at the kitchen table and Patrick's dad just stood there, staring at me. Patrick's mom looked at me and said, "I smelled weed upstairs. I could smell it all the way from the basement, and when I came down, it reeked. I can tell by your eyes that you're high, so why don't you just be honest with me? Did you two smoke weed down there?" I sighed, knowing I was caught. "Yeah, we did," I admitted. She crossed her arms. "Where is it?" she asked. I hesitated for a second and then said, "It's in my backpack downstairs." She nodded. "Does Patrick have any weed?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, he doesn't," I lied. Patrick actually had most of the weed. It was hidden in his room, but the weed we were smoking downstairs was mine. We had been taking turns smoking from each other's stash. She eyed me suspiciously. "Are you lying to me?" she asked. "No, I swear. He doesn't have any." "It was all mine," I said, taking the blame. She stared at me for a moment and then said, "All right. Thanks for being honest. Go get it." I nodded and went back downstairs, grabbed the weed from my bag and brought it back up. Patrick was still asleep. He didn't wake up through any of this. I sat back down at the kitchen table, put the weed on the table, and she looked at it before saying, "All right, I'm not going to call your mom. I won't tell her about this, but I want the weed." I nodded. "Yeah, it's yours," I said, relieved she wasn't going to call my mom. She took the weed, put it in her robe pocket, and I thought that was it. But then she got up, walked over to one of the kitchen drawers and pulled out a $20 bill. She came back, handed it to me and said, "Here, I feel bad for taking your weed without giving you anything for it." I stared at her, confused. "Did you just buy weed off me?" I asked. She shrugged. "Not directly, but if that's how you want to see it, sure." I couldn't believe it. She had just taken my weed and then paid me for it. The amount she took was probably worth like $15, so not only did she take it, but she overpaid me for it too. I was in shock. After that, she and Patrick's dad went back to their room and I went back downstairs. I woke Patrick up and said, "Bro, you're never gonna guess what just happened." He rubbed his eyes, still half asleep. "What? What happened?" he asked. I laughed. "Dude, your mom came down here. She smelled the weed and took it. But I took all the blame. I told her it was all mine and that you didn't have any weed stashed away." He looked at me, concerned. "Shit, man. Did she call your mom?" I shook my head. "No, she didn't. But get this, after she took the weed, she gave me $20 because she felt bad for taking it. I think I just accidentally sold your mom weed, bro." He stared at me, dumbfounded. "You're fucking with me," he said. "Nah, man, I'm dead serious," I replied. He shook his head, lying back down. "I'm going back to sleep," he mumbled. The next morning, we talked about it again. Patrick still couldn't believe it. "You're really not fucking with me on this?" he asked. "Dude, I swear it's true," I said. He just shook his head in disbelief. "Man, when I got caught, my mom grounded me for a month. She didn't call your mom or anything?" he asked. "Nope," I said. He sighed. "I can't believe she cut you some slack, but not me." I shrugged. "I guess she likes me or something. Plus, I'm not her kid, so maybe she didn't feel like she could discipline me the way she does you." Honestly, I was just as surprised as he was. I mean, it kinda made sense. She always seemed to like me, and maybe she didn't feel right about calling my mom since I wasn't her kid. But the fact that she gave me money for taking my weed? That blew my mind. Like, "Hey, sorry for taking your weed, Luna. Here's $20. Go buy some more." If you're a parent, maybe don't do that. Anyway, my mom didn't find out about this, at least not right away. I ended up telling her the story a few years later because it was just too funny not to share. And now, here I am, sharing it with you guys, so I hope you enjoyed it. Moral of the story, don't do what young Luna and Patrick... Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So today's story time is one that's kind of funny, in hindsight at least. At the time though, not so much. Hope you guys enjoy this one. Leave a like on the video if you do, and let's just jump right into it. Alright, so today's story is about the time I got a little too high before detention. Yeah, you heard that right. Getting high before detention, as if I didn't already have enough problems. You're probably wondering how that even happened. Well, let me take you back to freshman year. This was about halfway through the year, and I was so over it. I was sick of school, I just wanted it to be summer. You know that feeling, right? Where every day feels like a drag? Yeah, that was me. So, it's a regular weekday, I got up miserable, just not in the mood to deal with school. I took a shower, ate some breakfast, and surprisingly, I was actually up pretty early this day. I had time to get ready without rushing, which was unusual for me, and just before the bus got to my house, I made a very stupid decision. I decided to bring a little bit of weed with me to school. Bad idea, right? Don't ever do that. But my dumbass thought it was smart because I planned to smoke a bit after school in the woods with my friends before taking the after school bus home. So I grabbed like $10 worth of weed, put it in a little baggie, tossed it in my backpack, and went to school. Most of the day was chill, nothing really out of the ordinary, but my last period, which was study hall, things started to go south. Now, in this study hall, all we had to do was sit quietly and do work. Sounds simple, right? The only rule was to stay quiet, but of course I wasn't following that rule. I kept cracking jokes with my friend sitting next to me, and we were laughing our asses off at some stupid shit. The kind of joke that's not even that funny, but when you're with a certain friend, it becomes hilarious, you know? The study hall teacher kept getting more and more annoyed. She was like, guys, come on. The one thing you have to do is stay quiet and you can't even manage that? But every time we tried to stay quiet, it made everything funnier. It was one of those situations where being told not to laugh just makes it 10 times harder to keep a straight face. Finally, the teacher had had enough. She looks at us and says, one more laugh and you're both getting detention. And of course, that just made it even funnier. My friend and I looked at each other and it was like trying to hold back a sneeze. I couldn't do it. I burst out laughing and he followed right after. The teacher just looked at us deadpan and said, alright, I'll see you both after school. Guess you're not going home on time today. I was pissed. My whole day was ruined. I had plans to go smoke with my friends after school, but now I had detention. So, the bell rings, study hall ends, and even though I was fuming, I figured I'd make the best of it. My friend and I went into the hallway before heading to detention, and I was like, yo, I really don't want to go to detention, man. And he was like, bro, just go. If you skip, they'll just give you 2 detentions and it will be even worse. He was right, he was spitting facts. So I decided, fine, I'll go. But I'm gonna get high first. So I told him, yo, I've got weed in my locker. You wanna go smoke before we go in? He was down, of course. We grabbed my bag, went out to the woods behind the school and smoked a bowl together. By this point, the bell had rung to start detention, but we just ignored it and kept smoking. Now, here's where things get interesting. My friend didn't have much of a tolerance, and honestly, neither did I. I smoked more often than him, but that wasn't saying much. I was still a lightweight. He took one hit and said he was good. So I ended up finishing the bowl myself and, well, let's just say I was absolutely gone. I was on another planet by the time we finished. Now, it was time to head back inside for detention. I was late, like 10 or 15 minutes late, and walking back into school stoned out of my mind was not a good feeling. I went from vibing in the woods to stepping into what felt like a concrete prison. The fluorescent lights were hitting me and it just felt wrong. My friend and I walked into detention and the teacher looked at us like we were the biggest idiots she'd ever seen. She goes, are you guys serious right now? You're 10 minutes late to your own detention. I should give you another one. And I just said, I'm sorry, and started laughing. She was like, what's so funny? You think this is a joke? I said, no, I'm sorry, but I couldn't stop laughing. She just shook her head and told us to sit on opposite sides of the room. So we sat down and I pulled out some homework to make it look like I was working. But let me be real, I was way too high to be doing math. I just sat there, lost in my own thoughts, not doing anything. Halfway through detention, the teacher walked over to my desk and saw that I hadn't written a single thing. She goes, Austin, what have you been doing this whole time? I thought you were working. And I said, oh, this is a new sheet. I already did the other one. She goes, let me see it. I said, it's in my backpack already. She gave me a look and said, don't lie to me, Austin. I know you haven't done anything. Get to work. She was about to walk away when she stopped and sniffed the air. She goes, what is that smell? And in my head, I'm like, oh shit, I probably reek of weed. I looked up at her with my bloodshot eyes and said, what smell? She just stared at me and said, oh my, look at you. Look at your eyes. You're high, aren't you? I said, no, I'm not. I looked over at my friend and he had his head down on the desk, laughing his ass off. Tears were streaming down his face. The teacher looked at him and said, are you high too? He lifted his head, still laughing, and she just shook her head in disbelief. She said, that's it, detention for the rest of the week. And for some reason, that made us laugh even harder. I don't know what got into me. Well, actually I do. But usually when I got yelled at while I was high, I'd panic and shut down. But this time, I just couldn't stop laughing. She looked at us, completely fed up, and said, you know, I could send you both up to the main office right now and get you suspended. How about that? And that shut us up real quick. Detention was one thing, but suspension? That meant my parents getting involved, my Xbox taken away, my phone gone, the whole deal. Plus, enough suspensions and you get expelled. So yeah, we shut up fast. The teacher knew she had us. She was like, "Oh, real quiet now, huh? Get back to work." And let me tell you, I spent the rest of that detention doing my best to focus on that homework, even though I was still stoned out of my mind. I'm pretty sure I failed that assignment. I don't even remember what grade I got, but I can tell you it wasn't good. I could barely do math when I was sober, let alone high as a kite. In the end though, it could have been worse. I'm lucky the teacher, even though she was strict, didn't actually get us suspended. If it had been my other study hall teacher, I probably wouldn't have been as lucky. That other teacher was way stricter and definitely would have called the office. But, yeah, after detention, my friend and I just took the late bus home, hopped on Xbox and played some MW2 while laughing about what happened. Looking back, it's a pretty funny story, even if it wasn't at the time. And I definitely learned my lesson. Don't get high at school. It's just not worth it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is a wild one, and it's honestly one of the more ridiculous moments from my past. I hope you guys enjoy it, and if you do, please leave a like on the video. Alright, let's jump into it. So, today's story takes us back to the summer of 2015. I was definitely in my peak dumb Luna phase. Young, dumb, and just not as mature as I am now. It was summer, so everyone was out of school, including me, since I was in the process of dropping out at the time. I was basically in limbo. My friends and I were all hanging out pretty much every day, crashing on each other's couches and making the most of our time off. On this particular day, I was hanging out with my friend Brian. We decided to hit up a playground to smoke because we couldn't do it at our parents' houses without risking getting grounded. We found an empty playground, no kids or families around, and we were just chilling there, smoking a bowl. It wasn't anything crazy, just the usual spot to hang out since we had nowhere else to go. The first 10-20 minutes were pretty chill. We finished the first bowl and Brian was like, "Yo, wanna smoke another one?" I was down, so we packed another one. But as we were getting ready to light up, I started feeling a bit paranoid. I always got a little sketched out when I was high, so I looked around to make sure no one was around. Everything seemed clear and we started smoking again. But then, out of nowhere, I noticed an SUV pulling into the parking lot. The lot was a decent distance from the playground, so I couldn't see the details of the car too well. It was a black SUV, and I thought maybe it was just someone on their lunch break. Sometimes people park there to eat lunch. But then, I saw a man get out of the car and start walking towards us. And not just any man, it was a cop. My heart sank. I nudged Brian and whispered, "Yo, dude, put that Sumox away. There's a cop coming." Brian, who was already pretty stoned, looked confused and was like, "Huh? Where?" I tried to stay calm and told him, "Bro, just put it away. Trust me." He finally put the bowl away, but he kept looking around like he had no clue what was happening. The cop walked up to us and I heard him say, "What are you boys doing here?" I looked up, trying to act casual, and said, "Not much, just hanging out, enjoying summer vacation." He asked how old we were, and we both answered, 16. He gave us this look and said, "A little old to be playing on a playground, don't you think?" I quickly replied, "We're not playing, just hanging out. All the benches are wet from the rain, so we figured we'd sit here where it's dry." Which was true. We would have much rather sat on a bench, but they were all soaked. The cop then got straight to the point. He said, "Alright, I'm gonna ask you once, and I want you to be honest with me. You boys smoking weed out here? I can smell it, and it smells like skunk." Before I could even answer, Brian jumped in. He said, "No, officer, absolutely not. We were smoking, but it was just tobacco." The cop looked skeptical and said, "Tobacco, huh?" Brian nodded, and to prove his point, he unzipped his backpack and pulled out the bowl. The weed in the bowl was already pretty charred, so it wasn't obvious what it was. It just looked like some blackened substance. Brian even had an excuse for the smell. He said, "I know it smells like weed, but that's just because I used this pipe for weed in the past. Today it's only tobacco, I swear." I was sitting there, thinking, this is the dumbest thing ever. We were 16 and we had a tiny amount of weed, maybe $20 worth. If Brian had just told the truth, the cop probably would have let us off with a warning and told us to go home. But instead, Brian was making up this whole elaborate story. The cop took the bowl from Brian, looked at it, and even smelled it. He was like, "So you're telling me this is tobacco and it only smells like weed because you used it for weed before?" Brian nodded and swore on his mom and dad that it was only tobacco. The cop asked if we had fake IDs, and we both said no. Brian added that he had used a fake ID to buy the tobacco, but that it was at his parents' house. The cop told us that if we did have fake IDs, we should get rid of them because it was a serious charge. Surprisingly, the cop handed the bowl back to Brian and said, "Alright, I'm giving this back, but if I catch you guys out here again, or if we get more calls about you, you're getting trespassed." That confirmed that someone had called the cops on us for smoking in the park. The cop walked back to his car and I looked at Brian. I said, "Rest in peace to Dave and Linda," which were his parents' names. He looked confused and asked why I was saying that. I said, "Bro, you swore on your parents' lives that it was tobacco. Really? You had to go that far?" He just laughed and said, "Did it not work? I was saying whatever I could to make him believe me, and it worked." I couldn't argue with that. It did work, but I still thought it was crazy that he went that far. Brian was always the most spiritual guy in our friend group, so it was wild to me that he'd swear on his parents' lives while lying. I kept giving him sauce about it all day, jokingly asking if he wanted to swear on his parents' lives every time he said something. Obviously nothing happened to his parents, they're still in good health to this day, but it was just such a bold move. In the end, the cop let us off with a warning and we decided to find a different spot to smoke from then on. We didn't go back to that park for a long time after that. Moral of the story? Don't be like Brian. That whole situation could have gone a lot worse. And honestly, don't be like me back then either. We were just being reckless, always getting ourselves into trouble. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video and feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below. Subscribe if you're new and I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is a wild one and it's honestly one of the more ridiculous moments from my past. I hope you guys enjoy it, and if you do, please leave a like on the video. Alright, let's jump into it. So, today's story takes us back to the summer of 2015. I was definitely in my peak dumb Luna phase, young, dumb, and just not as mature as I am now. It was summer, so everyone was out of school, including me, since I was in the process of dropping out at the time. I was basically in limbo. My friends and I were all hanging out pretty much every day, crashing on each other's couches and making the most of our time off. On this particular day, I was hanging out with my friend Brian. We decided to hit up a playground to smoke because we couldn't do it at our parents' houses without risking getting grounded. We found an empty playground, no kids or families around, and we were just chilling there, smoking a bowl. It wasn't anything crazy, just the usual spot to hang out since we had nowhere else to go. The first 10-20 minutes were pretty chill. We finished the first bowl and Brian was like, "Yo, wanna smoke another one?" I was down, so we packed another one. But, as we were getting ready to light up, I started feeling a bit paranoid. I always got a little sketched out when I was high, so I looked around to make sure no one was around. Everything seemed clear, and we started smoking again. But then, out of nowhere, I noticed an SUV pulling into the parking lot. The lot was a decent distance from the playground, so I couldn't see the details of the car too well. It was a black SUV, and I thought maybe it was just someone on their lunch break. Sometimes people park there to eat lunch. But then, I saw a man get out of the car and start walking towards us. And not just any man, it was a cop. My heart sank. I nudged Brian and whispered, "Yo, dude, put that shit away. There's a cop coming." Brian, who was already pretty stoned, looked confused and was like, "Huh? Where?" I tried to stay calm and told him, "Bro, just put it away. Trust me." He finally put the bowl away, but he kept looking around like he had no clue what was happening. The cop walked up to us and I heard him say, "What are you boys doing here?" I looked up, trying to act casual, and said, "Not much, just hanging out, enjoying summer vacation." He asked how old we were, and we both answered, 16. He gave us this look and said, "A little old to be playing on a playground, don't you think?" I quickly replied, "We're not playing, just hanging out. All the benches are wet from the rain, so we figured we'd sit here where it's dry." Which was true, we would have much rather sat on a bench, but they were all soaked. The cop then got straight to the point. He said, "Alright, I'm gonna ask you once and I want you to be honest with me. You boys smoking weed out here? I can smell it and it smells like skunk." Before I could even answer, Brian jumped in. He said, "No officer, absolutely not. We were smoking but it was just tobacco." The cop looked skeptical and said, "Tobacco, huh?" Brian nodded and to prove his point he unzipped his backpack and pulled out the bowl. The weed in the bowl was already pretty charred, so it wasn't obvious what it was. It just looked like some blackened substance. Brian even had an excuse for the smell. He said, "I know it smells like weed, but that's just because I used this pipe for weed in the past. Today, it's only tobacco, I swear." I was sitting there thinking, this is the dumbest thing ever. We were 16 and we had a tiny amount of weed, maybe $20 worth. If Brian had just told the truth, the cop probably would have let us off with a warning and told us to go home. But instead, Brian was making up this whole elaborate story. The cop took the bowl from Brian, looked at it, and even smelled it. He was like, "So you're telling me this is tobacco and it only smells like weed because you used it for weed before?" Brian nodded and swore on his mom and dad that it was only tobacco. The cop asked if we had fake IDs and we both said no. Brian added that he had used a fake ID to buy the tobacco, but that it was at his parents' house. The cop told us that if we did have fake IDs, we should get rid of them because it was a serious charge. Surprisingly, the cop handed the bowl back to Brian and said, "All right, I'm giving this back, but if I catch you guys out here again, or if we get more calls about you, you're getting trespassed." That confirmed that someone had called the cops on us for smoking in the park. The cop walked back to his car and I looked at Brian. I said, "Rest in peace to Dave and Linda," which were his parents' names. He looked confused and asked why I was saying that. I said, "Bro, you swore on your parents' lives that it was tobacco. Really? You had to go that far?" He just laughed and said, "Did it not work? I was saying whatever I could to make him believe me, and it worked." I couldn't argue with that. It did work, but I still thought it was crazy that he went that far. Brian was always the most spiritual guy in our friend group, so it was wild to me that he'd swear on his parents' lives while lying. I kept giving him shit about it all day, jokingly asking if he wanted to swear on his parents' lives every time he said something. Obviously nothing happened to his parents, they're still in good health to this day, but it was just such a bold move. In the end, the cop let us off with a warning, and we decided to find a different spot to smoke from then on. We didn't go back to that park for a long time after that. Moral of the story: don't be like Brian. That whole situation could have gone a lot worse. And honestly, don't be like me back then either. We were just being reckless, always getting ourselves into trouble. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video and feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below. Subscribe if you're new and I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So today's story time is one of those not so proud moments of mine. One of those stories where I look back and just think, damn, I was so out of pocket for this one. I hope you guys enjoy it and maybe get a laugh out of how dumb I was. Let's just get into it. This all starts off as a regular day in 2019. I was sitting in my apartment all by myself. I'd just woken up and it was already late as hell. I had a terrible sleep schedule back then, and honestly, not much has changed. I think I woke up around 4 p.m, which gives you an idea of how much of a degenerate I was. So I was just laying there, either watching YouTube or Netflix, basically wasting away like a lazy ass. Anyway, my phone had fallen off the bed at some point while I was sleeping, so I hadn't heard it go off all day. I finally reached down to grab it and checked for notifications. I had a bunch of missed messages, and one of them was from my friend John. He had texted me about an hour before, inviting me to his birthday party that night. I had completely forgotten it was John's birthday, so I was lucky he reminded me. I texted him back, all sluggish and half asleep, at around 4:30 saying, "Hey, sorry bro, I didn't see this. You already know I'm gonna be there. I'll see you later." Fast forward a couple hours, John's party was starting and I was ready to go. I got myself cleaned up, took a shower, got dressed, and headed out. I stopped at a store on my way to grab him a little birthday gift. I didn't want to be that guy who shows up empty-handed, so I got him a card with some cash in it. Just something simple, you know. After that, I made my way over to John's place. The first half of the party was awesome. Everyone was there, all our friends, and John had his house decorated for the occasion. It was wholesome, just a really fun birthday party vibe. But then things started to take a turn, for the worse. It all went downhill when I decided to start drinking. Now, I don't drink often. In fact, I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've gotten drunk. It's just never been my thing. Drinking never makes me feel good, and usually it just leads to something bad happening. And, well, this was definitely one of those times. I started out with just a couple of beers, nothing too crazy, I could handle that. But after those 2 beers, everyone else started taking shots. And of course, John was like, "Come on, Austin, take a shot with us." So I took 2, maybe 3 shots, and that's when things started to get messy. I was fucked up after those shots. I mean, I never drink, so my tolerance is practically 0. I could feel myself getting hammered, but everyone just kept on going. They kept pouring shots, and each time they'd be like, "Come on, Austin, one more, let's go." And the dumbass that I am, I just kept going along with it until I blacked out. I shit you not, the last thing I remember from that party was taking a shot of what I think was tequila. I remember everyone cheering and egging me on, and then nothing. It was just blank. The next thing I knew, I was waking up the following morning. I felt like I'd been hit by a fucking truck. I woke up in John's bed, in his bedroom, completely alone. I had no idea where John was and I felt awful. I mean, it wasn't just a hangover. It was like a hangover mixed with getting your ass beat. I got up feeling sore as hell and noticed a huge bruise on my ribcage. I must have fallen or something while I was drunk. I stumbled across the hall to the bathroom, took a piss, and then went over to the sink to wash my hands. That's when I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. And holy shit, I looked like I'd been in a bar brawl. I had a black eye, my lip was busted, my face was swollen. I looked like I'd gotten the absolute shit kicked out of me. I was like, yo, what the fuck happened last night? I needed answers. I went downstairs, looking around for John. The house was a mess, trash everywhere from the party. I couldn't find him inside, so I went over to the sliding glass door and saw John in the backyard cleaning up. I opened the door and walked out, and the first thing I said was, "John, what the fuck happened to my face?" He looked at me, laughed, and said, "Oh, you're awake." That made me even more confused. I was like, "Bro, what do you mean? What happened last night?" And he was like, "Let's just say you should never drink again." I told him, "Yeah, no shit. What did I do? I don't remember a thing." He shook his head and said, "Bro, you got shit-faced and started picking fights with random people." I couldn't believe it. I was like, "No, come on, that's not me. I've never done that in my life." He was like, I know, but when you get alcohol in you, you're a different person. You really shouldn't drink." I sighed and said, "Okay, so what happened? Tell me everything." John started filling me in. He said, "First of all, after that last shot, you stood up on my kitchen table and started giving this speech about how we all need to love each other more. But dude, the way you were saying it made no sense at all. You were slurring your words, stumbling around, but the sentiment was there, I guess." After that, I apparently jumped down off the table, went up to one of the random jock dudes from our old high school, and started going off on him. I was like, "Yeah, we need to love each other more, so stop being an asshole to everyone." The guy didn't react though. He could tell I was hammered, and he wasn't, so he just brushed it off. Then I went up to this other guy, someone named Nathan, who I didn't even know, and started picking a fight with him for no reason. John said, "You got in his face and started yelling about how he needed to love people more, and when he told you to back off, you pushed him, and he pushed you back, and well, yeah, he kinda beat the shit out of you." I groaned and said, "Okay, so who is this dude? Is he still here? I want to apologize. I don't want any bad blood." John told me, "Nah man, he left after the fight. We broke it up and kicked him out. We didn't want things escalating any further." I sighed and said, "You should have kicked me out. I was being an idiot." He shook his head and said, "Nah, it's fine. We just put you to bed after that." I asked if there was anything else I needed to know, like if I did anything else stupid. John hesitated and then said, well, the guy who beat you up, he's a teacher now, if that makes it any better." I stared at him, shocked. "That makes it worse. What do you mean he's a teacher?" John said, "Yeah, he's a teacher at our old high school. He got a job there about a year ago. He's one of the younger teachers." So let me get this straight. A teacher from my old high school, probably in his late 20s, beat the shit out of me at John's birthday party. And now he's probably back at the school, telling the story about how he beat up Luna, the guy who always caused trouble and told crazy stories. I could just imagine him going to my old principal and saying, "Hey, remember that Luna kid? Yeah, I gave him what he deserved." Honestly, my principal probably would have been happy about it. I wasn't exactly his favorite student. But yeah, I learned a valuable lesson that night. If I ever drink again, it's going to be in extreme moderation. Alcohol and I just don't mix well, clearly. So, yeah, that's the story of the time I got drunk, picked fights, and got my ass handed to me by a teacher. I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video, and feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is definitely not one of my proudest moments. It's one of those stories that really messed up one of my friendships for a while. But, you know, I'm here to tell it for you guys, so let's just jump into it. Today's story is about the time I hooked up with my friend's sister. Now, there are a few unspoken rules when you have a good friend, and one of those rules is, well, you probably shouldn't hook up with their sister because it's bound to make things awkward, and they'd probably get pretty pissed. And let me tell you, my friend definitely did. Anyway, let's jump right into it. So, this story takes place back in 2018. In 2018, I had just moved back home to New York from LA. I had my own apartment and I was chilling there, spending most of my days working on videos, hanging out with friends when I could. Nothing too crazy, just normal day-to-day stuff. One Saturday night, it was around 7 p.m. and I was so bored, like painfully bored, with absolutely nothing to do. I was hitting up all my friends and none of them were available. So, I thought, you know what? Let me put something up on my Snapchat friends only story. I posted, "Hey, anyone want to do something?" I figured maybe someone would see it and reach out. About 30 minutes later, my friend's sister swiped up on my story. Now, let's call my friend Brian. Brian and I had been friends for a good 4 or 5 years at this point. Brian's sister, let's call her Katie, was only a year older than Brian. She was always really cool to me, and we were friends too, but Brian was my main friend, you know? Like, Katie and I would talk a bit whenever I was at Brian's house, but the friendship was more about me and Brian. Anyway, Katie swiped up on my story and said, "Hey, we're going out to this club tonight, you should come with us." She told me the name of the club, and it was literally right down the street from my apartment. I thought about it for a second, like, is it weird to go clubbing with my friend's sister? But then I figured, nah, I'm overthinking this. We're just going out, it's not that deep. Plus, I'll probably meet someone cool there. So, I said sure, and about an hour and a half later, I met up with her at the club. We said hello, hugged, and everything was super chill. Honestly, the night was really fun. There was no awkwardness at all, and Katie and her friends were actually really cool. I ended up going with her and 4 of her girlfriends, and I can't lie, I think I had more fun at that club with her and her friends than I've ever had at a club with my own friends. It was just good vibes all around. Now, fast forward to the end of the night. The club was closing and it was time to leave. My plan was to just head back to my apartment since I lived only about a mile away. Plus I wasn't feeling too great and just wanted to crash. But as I was about to say goodbye, Katie was like, "Hey, what are you doing after this?" I said, "Honestly, I'm probably just going to go home." She wasn't having it though. She said, No, you can't leave yet. We're all going back to my friend's house to smoke. You should come with us. It'll be fun." I didn't really want to smoke anymore. I had already smoked a bit outside the club with them earlier, and I was feeling kind of dizzy and just not great. But I was like, you know what? Fine, I'll come with, but I'm not sure if I'll smoke. So, I ended up going with them to her friend's place. We got there, and of course, I didn't keep my promise. I ended up smoking again. I got even more fucked up, but after like 5 or 10 minutes, it passed and I started feeling better. So, we're all sitting there in a circle, just talking and hanging out for about an hour. Then people started getting tired and going to bed. The apartment had a few guest rooms, so people were just finding places to crash. Eventually, it ended up being just me, Katie, and this other girl who owned the apartment. The other girl asked, "Are you guys staying here tonight?" At this point, I was so tired and out of it that I said, "Yeah, if you'll let me, I'd love to stay." She said, "Alright, well, I think all the guest rooms are taken, so you'll have to take the couch." She looked at Katie and asked, "What about you?" Katie said, "I could just sleep on the couch too, there's another one." And that was true, there were 2 couches in the living room. So, we were all set. About 10 minutes later, the girl who owned the apartment went to bed, and it was just me and Katie on our separate couches, watching Netflix and just chilling. As I'm laying there, I noticed there was a lever underneath my couch. It was a pull-out bed. I thought, oh shit, jackpot. I pulled out the bed, and it was a pretty decent-sized mattress for a pull-out. I was laying there, and there was plenty of room. Katie looked over and asked, "Hey, do you mind if I just lay on one side of your bed? This couch sucks." I was like, sure. Now, in my head, I was thinking, alright, this is where things are starting to get a little weird. If Brian knew I was sharing a bed with his sister, I knew he wouldn't like it. But at the same time, we weren't doing anything wrong. We weren't kissing or anything like that, we were just laying there. So I figured I was overthinking it. About 10 minutes after she got into the bed, I was starting to doze off when she tapped me on the shoulder. I looked over and she said, "Hey, can you grab me a water?" I said, "Sure." So I got up, went to the kitchen, grabbed her a water and came back. I handed it to her and she said, "Thank you, you're sweet." I laughed and said, "Nah, I'm not, but thank you." I laid back down and then she said, "Can I ask you something?" I said, "Yeah, what's up?" She asked, "Do you think I'm attractive?" And that's when I thought, okay, this is officially getting weird. I asked, "Why do you want to know?" She said, "I just want to know." I asked again, "But why?" She looked at me and said, "Because I might think you are." I can't lie, half of me was feeling really good, like, damn, okay, this is flattering. But the other half of me was thinking, this is not good, this is Brian's sister. So I said, "Listen, you're one of my good friend's sisters. If I answer this question, I feel like I'm going to get in trouble. So I'll just say this, I don't think you're ugly." She smiled and said, "Thanks, I guess." I replied, "No problem," and we both laid back down. Sure enough, a minute later, she started getting closer to me, kind of cuddling up. I don't know what got into me, but at that point, I threw all of my concern for Brian's feelings out the window. And that's not like me, I usually wouldn't do something like that. But in that moment, I thought, fuck it, I'm an adult, she's an adult, we can do what we want, I'm not going to disrespect her, so why should he care? So, yeah, Katie and I ended up flirting a bit more, and one thing led to another, and we hooked up. And let me tell you, it was the most awkward hookup for so many reasons. First of all, it was Brian's sister, so that alone was weird. Second, we were in a living room with no walls, no doors, no privacy. We had to keep looking over our shoulders, worried that someone might walk in on us. Luckily, no one did, but it was still super awkward. Anyway, the next morning, as we were getting ready to leave, I walked up to her and asked, "Hey, are you gonna tell Brian?" She said, "No. Are you?" I said, "I don't think so." She said, "Even if you did, I don't think he'd be that upset. You're a good dude and I like you. He should respect that." I thought, okay, fair enough. And here's the kicker, we ended up dating for a little while after that. We dated for like a month and a half, maybe 2 months, before we split up for a stupid reason. It was something petty, not even worth getting into. But we made up pretty quickly after that and decided to just stay friends. But here's the thing. During that whole 2-month period we were dating, Brian had no idea, not a single clue. After we broke up, I was feeling kinda down and Brian came over one day and noticed. He asked, "Yo, what's wrong? You seem really upset. Are you okay?" I looked at him and said, "I gotta tell you something, Brian." He looked concerned and asked, "What is it?" I said, "I dated your sister for 2 months and we broke up recently. It sucks." He started laughing, thinking I was joking. Then he realized I was serious and said, "Wait, you dated my sister for 2 months and didn't tell me?" I said, "Dude, I was just afraid of how you'd react." He said, "Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm a lot more fucking mad that you kept it a secret than I would have been if you told me from the start." He was pissed, and I get it. I think he had every right to be. If I were in his shoes, I'd be more upset that my friend kept it from me than the fact that they were dating my sister. I told him, "Listen man, I'm sorry. I won't keep shit from you anymore." He said, "Thank you. So, why'd you guys break up?" I explained that she was really insecure about the fact that I had a lot of followers online. She thought I was talking to other girls on the side, which wasn't true at all. I've never done that in my life. That's some weirdo behavior. She just didn't like that I had girls commenting on my posts, even though I didn't know most of them. She was one of those people who immediately assumed that if you had a friend of the opposite sex, you were sleeping with them. Brian understood. He said, "Yeah, she can be like that." In the end, everything ended up being okay between us, but Brian was definitely pissed for a while. He said he wasn't mad after we talked it out, but he didn't hang out with me for like 2 months after that, and that was weird because Brian and I would usually hang out every week or so. Eventually though, things went back to normal. So, yeah guys, moral of the story. Don't do what I did in this story. If you're gonna hook up with a friend's sibling, at least make sure your friend is cool with it, and definitely don't keep it a secret from them. That just makes things worse. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later, peace. Alright, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is unlike any of my others. It's crazy, it's a bit wild, and honestly, it's one of those nights that I look back on and still can't believe happened. So, yeah, I hope you enjoy this one. Leave a like if you do, and let's jump into it. So, today's story time takes place like 2 months after my 21st birthday. I was freshly 21, still getting used to the whole being able to go to bars thing and buying alcohol legally. It was all still pretty new to me. If you guys have followed my channel for a while, you probably know I'm not a huge drinker. I've never been super into it, it's just not my thing. So when I turned 21, I didn't have much of a desire to go crazy with alcohol. But of course, every now and then, I'd still go to the bar if my friends invited me, and this night was one of those times. On this night, I had plans to go out with some friends to a bar that was just down the street from me. This specific bar was known for being super popular. Tons of college kids went there, and most of the crowd was in the 21 to 25 range. So I was excited because I hadn't been there before. I'd passed by it a few times, poked my head in, but I never actually went in and partied there. I always heard good things about it, and it looked like a cool place, so I figured it was time to finally check it out. A few hours into the night, my friends came by my house and picked me up. We all drove to the bar together. We even had a designated driver. One of our friends wasn't drinking, so he was our ride for the night. Of course, if you're going out drinking, you should definitely have a designated driver or call an Uber. Don't be stupid about it. But anyway, we had our ride sorted, so we got there safely. Now, when we first got to the bar, it was still pretty dead, like not a lot of people were there yet. It was early and the party hadn't really started. We just went straight to the bar, got our drinks, and started slow. And that was my goal for the night, to take it slow. I didn't want to go too crazy because I didn't have much of a tolerance for alcohol. I knew that if I had 3 or 4 drinks too quickly, I'd be completely wrecked. So I was just chilling, sipping on a beer, and taking it easy. For the first hour, everything was going great, and I stuck to my plan. But then, as the night went on, maybe around hour 2, things started to change. The bar started to fill up. It got super packed and more people were showing up. The vibe was definitely shifting to full-on party mode. My friends started buying me drinks, even though I told them I was trying to take it easy. But they weren't taking no for an answer, so I drank them. I don't remember exactly how many drinks they bought me, but I know that after a while, I started feeling pretty buzzed. I was getting tipsy, and I was like, alright, I need to slow down. No more drinks for now. I told my friends I was taking a break, and they respected it, which was cool of them. Honestly, they didn't have a choice because I wasn't going to drink anymore, regardless of what they said. So during this hour of chill, when I wasn't drinking, this group of guys came into the bar. They immediately came over to where we were sitting at the bar and grabbed the chairs next to us. One of the guys in the group ended up sitting right next to me, and the first thing he did was look over and say, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Good man. "How about you?" He replied, "Pretty good," and I said, "Sweet, glad to hear." Then he asked, "What's this bar like? Is it fun?" I told him, "I've never been here before until now. This is my first time." He said, "Oh, me too." And I was like, "Hell yeah," and gave him a high five because, I was a little bit tipsy, and it just felt like the right thing to do at the moment. We kept talking, and pretty quickly into the conversation, I could tell this dude was gay. About halfway through our chat, he mentioned that he was there with his boyfriend and that they'd been together for 2 years. He started telling me all about how they met and their relationship. And let me just say, I don't give a fuck about what anyone does with their life. You want to suck some wiener or some titties? Go for it. I don't care. People who care too much about what others are doing need to take a walk and reevaluate their lives. I don't care. Live your life. So when this guy was telling me all this, I was genuinely happy for him. It was cool hearing his story. He told me about how he met his boyfriend at a rock climbing gym, and it was just a wholesome story. He also mentioned that he used to be in the military. The dude seemed like he'd lived a pretty crazy life, and I was just sitting there, listening to him as he waited for his drink. After a few more minutes, his drink finally arrived. The bar was really busy, so drinks were taking forever. He got his drink, stood up, and said, "I'll see you later. Thanks for talking to me." I said, "No problem, man. Have a great night." He went off with his friends and, I think, his boyfriend into the crowd to go dance or do whatever. So I'm still sitting there at the bar with my friends, just chilling and taking a break from drinking. Maybe 5 minutes later, my girlfriend walks in. I forgot to mention, but around this time, I was dating someone. We'd been together for a couple of months and things were going really well. I'm not going to say it was super serious because it had only been a couple of months, but I really liked her and she seemed to really like me. When she walked in, I was so happy to see her. It was a total surprise. I had no idea she was coming. Apparently my friends had invited her, which was really cool of them. She ran over, gave me a hug, and I asked her what the fuck she was doing there because I wasn't expecting it at all. She told me that my friends had invited her to come surprise me because they knew I liked her. They were just being good friends, and it was awesome. It made my night. Now, here's where things get a little weird. My friends decided that since my girlfriend had shown up, they wanted to buy us drinks. They figured that now that she was here, I'd probably be willing to take another shot or something. They were right. I didn't want to let my girl drink alone, so I agreed to take a shot with her. And that shot was what pushed me over the edge. Before, I was just tipsy, like a little bit buzzed. But after that shot, I was drunk. Fully drunk. After that, my friends started getting rowdy, cheering and being obnoxious because they were excited to see me drunk. It was a rare occurrence, and they wanted to see just how far they could push it. They were like, "Yo, Austin, let's go dance. Let's go hit the dance floor." I was like, "Nah, I'm good." But they kept pushing, saying, "Come on, dude, this song is your jam." And I remember what song was playing. It was Ransom by Lil Tecca. That song was everywhere at the time and I loved it. I can't lie, it's still a banger. So, with the song playing, my girl there, and all my friends hyping me up, I said, "Fuck it, let's go." And before I knew it, I was on the dance floor with my friends and my girlfriend, drunkenly dancing like an idiot. We were all just making fools of ourselves, but we were having a blast. While we were on the dance floor, I noticed that the guy I was talking to earlier was standing off to the side with his friends, laughing at us as we danced. He came over to us while I was dancing with my girlfriend and asked, "Is this your girlfriend?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh my god, you guys are so cute." He was just being a hype man, hyping us up. He started telling my girlfriend how beautiful she was, and I wasn't even jealous or anything. I knew the dude swung for the other side, so it was all good. Now, here's where the story really takes a turn and gets wild. While I was talking to this guy with my girlfriend, another dude started approaching us. I recognized him because I'd seen him hanging out with the guy I was talking to earlier. He was part of their group. This guy was walking up to us really fast, and he had this look in his eyes that wasn't good. He walked right up to me, locked eyes, and gave me the dirtiest look. Then, without saying a word, he shoved me hard. He pushed me probably 5 or 10 feet back into a table, knocking it over, and I fell down with the table. Before I even had a chance to react, this guy was charging at me, swinging his fists, trying to beat the shit out of me. I was on the ground, trying to block his punches, and there was a whole ass chair on top of me because I'd fallen into the table and chairs. People were screaming, telling him to stop, and it was just chaos. After about 15 seconds, people were able to pull him off of me, and I finally managed to get up. Thankfully, he didn't land many punches. He got me twice. One hit my shoulder, and the other one hit my neck. It wasn't anything serious. But as soon as I stood up, all I wanted to do was charge at this dude and fight back. I was pissed, but I couldn't because, by that point, 2 bouncers, a bartender, and a manager were all surrounding us, keeping us apart. I was yelling, "Yo, what the fuck? Why would you do that?" He was just screaming back, telling me to go fuck myself, calling me a piece of shit and all this nonsense. Meanwhile, the guy who'd been nice to me, the one who was talking to us before, was freaking out. He was trying to calm the guy down, putting his arms around him, and I heard him say, "Baby, relax." That's when it hit me. This guy who had attacked me was his boyfriend, so now I'm standing there, confused as hell. Why the fuck did this dude's boyfriend just try to beat me up? I yelled, "Why the fuck would you do that?" But he just kept calling me names instead of explaining why he attacked me. The guy who'd been nice to me, let's just call him Mark, finally walked over to me, and my girlfriend, who was trying to calm me down, was right there with me. Mark said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know why he did that. I have no idea what the fuck that was about." I asked, "So that's your boyfriend?" Mark nodded. "Yeah, I'm really sorry." I said, "Look, it's fine. I'm not hurt. But can you ask him why he did that? I need to know." He nodded and walked back over to his boyfriend. I watched as Mark started talking to his boyfriend, and they were kind of mumbling back and forth, but I couldn't hear them. We were pretty far apart at this point. But then I heard Mark yell, "He has a girlfriend, you fucking idiot!" And that's when everything made sense. The guy who attacked me thought I was hitting on his boyfriend. I started laughing because, honestly, it was ridiculous. This guy attacked me because he thought I was trying to pick up his boyfriend when, in reality, I was just talking to him with my girlfriend standing right there. The guy who attacked me looked absolutely defeated after Mark yelled at him. He had the biggest look of regret on his face. He looked over at me and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I kept laughing and he started walking over. The bouncers were trying to stop him, but he said, No, it's fine. I want to apologize." They let him through and he came up to me and he said, "I'm so fucking sorry." I asked, "Dude, what did you think was happening?" He said, "I don't know. I'm just a jealous person. I saw him talking to you and smiling and I thought you were gay." I was like, "Wait, what? Why'd you think that?" He said, "I don't know. I just saw you standing next to your girl, but you guys weren't kissing or holding hands, so I thought maybe you were just friends and you were hitting on my guy." I was like, "No, man, not at all. Come on, dude. You can't just attack someone because you think that. You should have just asked." He said, "I know. I have a temper." I replied, "Yeah, dude, I can fucking tell." And let me just say, this guy was ripped, like, he was buff as hell. I had no problem standing up for myself, but I knew if we actually fought, I'd probably lose a few teeth. I was definitely outmatched. Doesn't mean I wouldn't have fought back, but I'm glad it didn't come to that. I'm glad there were bouncers and that we got separated before things got worse. After that, the guy apologized about 15 more times and I said, "It's fine," about 15 times. He had only landed 2 punches and one hit my shoulder and the other hit my neck, so it wasn't anything too serious. I was fine. But if things had gone differently and I had gotten hurt, I might not have been so forgiving. But since it was a misunderstanding and I could tell the guy genuinely felt bad about it, I decided to just let it go. Now, here's where things got even wilder. They actually didn't kick us out of the bar. I thought for sure we were getting thrown out after the fight broke out, but because we made up and everything seemed to cool down, they let us stay. I guess they could tell it wasn't an ongoing issue and that we were fine now, so they just moved on. My friends and my girlfriend were all around me, trying to make sure I was okay, and honestly, I was. I had a couple of bruises, but I was more shocked than anything. I kept saying, "This dude seriously thought I was trying to steal his boyfriend? That's wild." And everyone was laughing about it because, honestly, it was just a crazy misunderstanding. Not long after that, Mark and his boyfriend came back over to us and Mark apologized again. He looked so embarrassed and his boyfriend, the one who swung on me, was just kind of hanging his head in shame. He told me again how sorry he was and said that he shouldn't have jumped to conclusions like that. I told him it was all good and we even ended up talking for a bit after that. It was awkward at first, but the guy was clearly remorseful, and in a weird way it actually ended up being kind of funny. About 30 minutes after we were all talking, I noticed that there was a commotion near the dance floor. I looked over, and sure enough, it was Mark's boyfriend again, but this time he wasn't swinging at me, he was swinging at some other dude. Apparently he saw some guy slip something into a girl's drink and he lost his shit. I don't know how true it was, but he seemed genuinely upset and was trying to stop the guy. The bouncers quickly intervened and dragged him out of the bar, along with the guy he was fighting. At that point, I figured it was time for me to leave too. Things were getting way too crazy, and I didn't want to be around when the next fight broke out. My girlfriend, my friends and I decided we had seen enough for one night and we wanted to get the hell out of there, so we all left the bar and made our way back to my place. Thankfully, we still had our designated driver, so we didn't have to worry about getting an Uber or anything like that. The drive home was pretty quiet, except for a few moments when I couldn't help but laugh about everything that had happened. The whole thing was just so ridiculous. My friends were all joking around, and one of them said, "Hey Austin, maybe next time don't look so friendly when you're talking to dudes with jealous boyfriends." And we all laughed. Honestly, it was a wild night, but at least I walked away from it mostly unscathed. When we got back to my place, I sat down on the couch with my girlfriend, and she was still a little shaken up by everything. She said, I really thought that guy was going to hurt you." I hugged her and told her, "Nah, it was just a misunderstanding. I think he's just got a lot of issues." We ended up just cuddling on the couch for the rest of the night, talking about everything, and eventually we fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up and the first thing I did was check myself in the mirror. I had a little bruise on my shoulder and a small one on my neck, but other than that, I was totally fine. My girlfriend made us breakfast and we laughed about everything again. It was one of those stories that I knew I'd be telling for a long time, and honestly, it's still one of the craziest nights I've ever had. And looking back, I think the real lesson here is that you shouldn't jump to conclusions, especially when you're drunk. If Mark's boyfriend had just taken a second to talk to me instead of attacking me, we could have avoided the whole situation. I mean, it's not every day you get attacked because someone thinks you're trying to steal their boyfriend, but it makes for a good story. To this day, I've never seen those two guys again. If I had to guess, they were probably just bar hopping that night, and we just happened to cross paths at the wrong time. I hope they're doing well. I hope Mark's boyfriend has learned to keep his temper in check and doesn't just throw punches over misunderstandings. And I hope they're happy together because, honestly, they seemed like a good couple when they weren't fighting people in bars. Moral of the story, don't assume someone is hitting on your partner just because they're talking to them, especially when they have their girlfriend standing right there. And definitely don't start swinging without knowing the full story. Also, if you're the one in the conversation, maybe be a little more obvious that you're taken so no one gets the wrong idea. But honestly, you never know what's going through someone's head when they're drunk, and that's the crazy part about going out to bars. Anything can happen. And finally, if you're ever at a bar and see someone getting worked up or looking like they're about to start something, just walk away. It's not worth it. I could have gotten seriously hurt that night, and it was all because of a stupid misunderstanding. Luckily, everything ended okay, and I got a pretty funny story out of it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own crazy stories in the comments down below, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. So this story time is insane for a lot of reasons, and I've been waiting to tell it for a while now. It's interesting because most of my story times involve me getting hurt, but this time it wasn't me, it was a friend of mine. It's never a good day when anybody gets hurt, and I witnessed it all. It was crazy, so I'm gonna tell you all about it. Okay, today's story takes place in 2017. Now, 2017 was kind of like the era of the vape, in my opinion. I think they started to get really popular in like 2015 or 2016, but my friend group specifically all started vaping hardcore at the beginning of 2017. I think everyone I knew at that point had either a Juul or a box mod. I personally had one, but I didn't really use it because I was never really hooked on nicotine. I smoked cigarettes here and there growing up, and I had a vape, but I would either not hit it because I didn't want to deal with the nicotine, or I'd get juice with no nicotine in it, so it kind of just sat there vacant on my nightstand most of the time. But man, a bunch of my friends, they were hooked on vaping. Like, they would constantly be hitting those things. They'd build their own mods, order custom ones online, and try out different flavors and stuff. Looking back, I can't lie, it was a little bit cringe. Even at the time, I would look at it and think, damn, this is kind of a lot. Not saying it's cringy if you vape, but the way my friends were doing it, damn, it was a little cringy. Anyway, I had this one friend, her name was Sarah. I've been friends with Sarah since I was 12 years old, and we're still friends to this day. For some reason, Sarah was more into vaping than anyone else I knew. She had like 5 different mods and a Juul. It was just kind of an unhealthy obsession at that point. I would always mess with her about it. I'd be like, dude, you're starting a fucking vape collection. At what point is it too much? You've got like 5 box mods, a Juul, and probably some other stuff I don't even know about. Just get one vape and call it a day. Why do you need 6? She would justify it by saying, oh well, this one has this flavor, and that one has that flavor, and this one's smaller, it's the Juul, and this one has a different nicotine content. I was like, yo, alright, fine, you do you, I won't judge, but it's a little bit much. Alright, so one day in early 2017, Sarah and I were hanging out at her house, and she was on her MacBook looking at vapes online. I already thought that buying a vape off the internet was stupid because you can't see it in person, you can't see how it works. And also the site she was on looked so sketchy. It just looked super weird and scam-like. She showed me this vape she was looking at and asked, should I get this one? I was like, you want me to be honest? She said, yeah. So I said, no, you shouldn't get that one. You already have 6. Maybe sell a couple first. She was like, yeah, but this one's the best one. I feel like this could be my main one. She even called it her daily driver. I said, dude, do you? If you want to get it, go for it. All I'm saying is that this site looks sketchy as hell. Don't come crying to me when that thing explodes in your hand. I was joking, okay? I was completely kidding. I didn't actually think it would explode. I just thought the vape looked funny, and I was making a joke. But 2 weeks later, she got the vape, and I was at her house, and she was hitting it. blowing these obnoxiously big clouds in my face, and I'm sitting there, borderline annoyed. But it was working well, and I really thought I had eaten my words. I thought that site wasn't a scam, that they didn't sell cheap, crappy products, and that the vape was actually high quality. Well, about an hour after I got to her house that day, she had been using the vape for about 2 days at that point. We were in her room, listening to music, just talking like we always would. She was hitting her vape pretty much non-stop, and all of a sudden, I started smelling something weird. It smelled like something was burning. I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I said, "Do you smell that?" She said, "Yeah, I think it's my vape." I looked over, and there was smoke coming out of it, out of her hand. I said, "Yo, I think it's malfunctioning or something." She was like, "No, I think I just got some juice stuck where you hold the button down. I think it's just stuck hitting. I think the cotton's burning." I said, "No, that doesn't look like it's vaping. It looks like it's smoking." Then more smoke started coming out, and it was looking more and more concerning. The smell was getting stronger, and it smelled like burnt popcorn. I said, "Yo, put it down." That's all I said because I had a feeling something bad was about to happen. I was like, "Yo, put that down." She goes, "It's fine, look." And she pressed down on the button to show me that it was just stuck. And I kid you not, the thing blows up like a mini grenade in her hand. It was actually so much more powerful than I thought a vape explosion could be. I thought it might spark a little bit or something, but no, this thing legitimately exploded and it flung against the wall. Her hand looked insane. I don't want to get too in detail because it was kind of gruesome, but her hand definitely needed medical attention. It looked charred in some places, and there were definitely open wounds. I'm honestly surprised she didn't get hurt worse. Not saying she wasn't hurt enough, she definitely was, but considering the size of that vape blowing up, I really thought it was going to be a lot worse. Anyway, she starts freaking out, crying and screaming. I'm like, hold on, relax." I grabbed some cold water and started pouring it over her hand. Not even sure if that's what you're supposed to do in that situation, but I know for burns, that's what you're supposed to do, so that's what I did. Her parents ended up rushing into the room, freaking out, asking what happened. We told them, and her dad immediately ran out of the room, came back with a little bath towel, wrapped her hand in it, and started moving her out of the room to take her to the hospital. Her mom ran back in with another towel for me because the vape was still in the corner, smoking, so I ran over to it and beat it with the towel a couple of times. Didn't seem to do much. I grabbed my water bottle and poured some cold water on it. Again, I have no idea if you're supposed to pour water on a vape-induced fire. I guess it wasn't even on fire, just smoking, but I didn't want it to catch on fire. I know with grease fires, adding water makes it worse, so I wasn't sure if this was similar. Either way, I poured water on the vape to stop it from catching fire, and it seemed to work. The smoke stopped and I heard a sizzling noise, so it seemed like it put something out. Then I threw the towel on it, wrapped it up, and threw it outside in the yard where it couldn't blow up anything else or catch anything else on fire. After that, we got in the car and rushed Sarah to the hospital. When we got there, she ended up needing a few things. I think she got stitches because she had an open wound and they did some sort of burn treatment. It wasn't serious burns, not like she needed skin grafts or anything, but they stitched her up, put some ointment on it, and sent her home with some cream to put on the wound and burns. Overall, she was okay, which was amazing because all I could think about was what would have happened if the vape had blown up in her mouth. If she had been hitting it when it exploded, she could have lost an eye. Or worse. So many things could have happened that were so much worse. Not saying what happened wasn't bad, because it was, but I'm just thankful she didn't have it in her mouth because that could have been a lot worse. I remember sitting in the hospital with her while she was getting stitches. She looked over at me and said, "You were right." I asked, "What do you mean?" She said, "It blew up in my hand." I was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You literally said, 'Don't come crying to me when it blows up,' and it did." I was like, "Oh, shti, I did say that." She said, "Yeah," and I apologized. I told her I really didn't think it was actually going to blow up, and she said, "It's okay, I learned my lesson." I felt so bad after that, and now I try not to joke about stuff like that because, apparently, shti might actually happen. Anyway, the moral of the story is, don't buy e-cigarettes from sketchy retailers. Honestly, if you're not already vaping, don't start. Don't get hooked on nicotine, that stuff's the devil. In the end, everyone was okay, everything was all good. We went back to Sarah's house after that. The vape was just a charred mess, still sitting in the yard, so her dad disposed of it. We went inside and just had a nice chill night after that and hung out. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, this incident led to Sarah quitting vaping, which was good. She didn't vape at all after this. She never hit one again because she was so afraid it would blow up, and honestly, I don't blame her. I don't think I would either. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys later. Peace. Yo, what's good y'all? It's Austin here, or Luna. Before this video starts, I just want to say, come join my Discord. I'm doing gaming nights once a week now, and movie nights and stuff, so come hang out with me. Anyway, onto the story. So today's story time is definitely one for the books. I've been waiting to tell this one for a while, and I'm finally doing it today, so I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like on the video if you do, and let's get into it. Today's story time takes place back in 2016. I was pretty young at the time, 18 years old. It was the end of 2016 and things were going really well for me. YouTube had finally become my full-time career and I was getting paid for doing what I loved, making videos and telling stories for you guys. My channel was really blowing up and for an 18-year-old I was making more money than I knew what to do with. It was exciting and I definitely wasn't very private about it. I shared a lot with my friends and because of that, word got around about who I was and what I was doing. Looking back, I probably should have been more discreet about being Luna and making money on YouTube. Not that I'm some important person, but you know, there are bad people out there. If they find out you have success or money, sometimes they'll try to steal from you or worse, and that's kind of where this story's headed. I had this friend back in 2016, we'll call him Kyle. Kyle was a good dude, one of my close friends. I'd known him for about a year or so at this point, and I had no complaints about him. But his mother, on the other hand, she was a different story. Kyle's mom was an addict. It started with pills, and from what Kyle told me, it spiraled into other substances. She wasn't herself because of it. She would steal, she would lie, and she just wasn't the kind of person you could trust. Kyle had to grow up way too fast because of it, and he essentially had to take care of his mom. It was messed up, but he handled it like a champ. One day Kyle hit me up and told me he was having a bonfire that night. He invited me over and of course I was down. A couple of hours later when the sun had set, I went over to Kyle's house, or rather Kyle's mom's house. We had a bonfire, roasted marshmallows, made s'mores, smoked a little bit of weed and just chilled. It was me, Kyle and a few of our other friends, maybe 5 or 6 of us total. We were there until about 2 or 3 in the morning. It was super late and I was getting tired. I was starting to doze off in my chair and Kyle noticed and was like, "Dude, just crash here. No one uses the guest room and it's late." I asked if he was sure and he insisted. He'd stayed at my place plenty of times so it only made sense. I agreed and he set me up in the guest room, gave me some blankets and even grabbed me some clean pajamas so I wouldn't have to sleep in my jeans. Kyle was a real one, for sure. So I was lying in the guest room, scrolling through Twitter and YouTube, trying to get tired again. I put my wallet, phone and keys on the nightstand and started drifting off. Then I remembered something. Kyle had told me that his mom sometimes stole from him, and I wasn't proud of this, but I had whopping $200 in cash in my wallet. Yeah, dumb move, I know. Never keep that much cash on you. It just felt like I was asking to be robbed. I had that much on me because I'd sold some old Supreme hoodies earlier in the week, and they paid me in cash. Anyway, I took the cash out of my wallet and decided to hide it. I put it in the toe of my shoe, figuring no one would think to look there. I mean, who would steal a pair of shoes, right? Well, apparently I was wrong because the next morning my shoes were gone. I woke up, went to put my shoes on, and they weren't there. Neither was my shirt. I was confused as hell thinking maybe Kyle had moved them for some reason. But after looking around the room, it was clear, they were just gone. So I put my jeans on and went downstairs. When I got downstairs, Kyle was sitting at the table eating breakfast. He'd made pancakes for us and his mom wasn't around. He saw the look on my face and immediately knew something was wrong. He was like, "Yo, are you good?" I asked him if he'd moved my shoes or my shirt and he said no. I told him they were missing and so was the $200 I'd hidden in my shoes. He was like, "Why the fuck did you put $200 in your shoes?" I explained that I didn't trust his mom and thought hiding it in my shoes would be safer than leaving it in my wallet. Kyle immediately ran upstairs and started yelling for his mom. She eventually came downstairs, clearly high on something, and was like, "Why are you guys yelling?" Kyle asked her where my shoes and shirt were, and she denied everything. She even tried to blame Kyle, saying he must have taken them. Kyle was pissed. He was like, "Mom, if you don't give those shoes back right now, with all the money in them, I'm calling the cops." He pulled out his phone and started dialing 911, and suddenly, she sobered up real quick. She was like, Okay, I'm sorry. Give me a second." She went back upstairs, and a minute later, she came back down with my shoes and shirt. When she handed them to me, I had to ask, how did she know there was money in there? She said she didn't know. She just thought my shoes looked cool and figured she could sell them. And when she picked them up, she found the money inside. But when I checked, only about half the money was there, maybe $600 or $700. I asked her where the rest was, and she said she was sorry, but she'd spent it. Kyle asked what she'd spent it on, but she wouldn't answer. We both knew though. It was depressing as hell. Kyle was furious. He ran out to his car and came back with a brand new MacBook. He handed it to me and said, "Here, sell this. Whatever you get for it, keep. I don't care if it's more than what you're owed. Just keep it all. I'm so sorry." I refused, of course. I wasn't about to take his laptop. He then pulled out $100 from his wallet and handed it to me, insisting I take it. I finally agreed, just to make him feel better. After that, we had breakfast, a very awkward breakfast since his mom was sitting there with us. When she left the table, Kyle told me he thought she was lying about spending the money. He didn't think she'd gone out the night before, and he was convinced the rest of the cash was still in her room. I told him to just let it go, but he insisted he'd check later. I left shortly after that, but before I did, I left the $100 Kyle had given me by his shoes at the front door. When I got home, I texted him and told him to check under his shoes. He texted back, "Bro, come on, why wouldn't you just take it?" I didn't want to take his money. It wasn't his job to bail his mom out, and I didn't want him to lose his hard-earned cash because of her mistakes. A few hours later, I was in my room playing Call of Duty when I got a FaceTime call from Kyle. I answered, and there he was, holding $600 in cash. He goes, "Guess what I found?" He'd gone through his mom's dresser and found the rest of the money. He said he'd confronted her, and though she was pissed that he'd gone through her stuff, she admitted it was mine. Kyle came by about an hour later and gave me the money. I took us both out to dinner that night, got some pizza, and we just hung out. I felt so bad for him. He was such a good kid, and he didn't deserve any of the shit he had to deal with. But there is some good news. A couple of years later, Kyle's mom went to rehab, and she's been sober ever since. I think she's going on 5 or 6 years sober now, and from what I've heard, she's been a much better mother to Kyle. Kyle and I are still friends to this day. We don't hang out as much since he moved to another city for a job, but we still talk, and I know he's doing well. So, shout out to you, Kyle. You're a real one. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the story time. Moral of the story, don't walk around with a bunch of cash on you like my dumbass did, especially in situations where it could easily get stolen. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today I've got a story that's been on my mind for a while, but I waited to share it until I was in a safer place both physically and channel-wise. I had to make sure that everything was set before I could tell this one, because the person involved is a bit on the crazy side. I didn't want to risk anything, but now that I'm in my new place, I can finally tell you about the craziest ex I've ever had. Buckle up, because this is one wild ride. So, this story takes place about a year and a half ago. I was dating this girl, and we had been together for about 6 months. Things seemed okay at first, but by the 3rd month, I started seeing red flags. And when I say red flags, I mean big ones. For example, every time I told her I needed to work on a YouTube video, which is my job, she would get mad at me, like I was ignoring her for something unimportant. I remember one time I told her I was going to make a video, and she said, "All you do is sit on your computer and play video games." I tried explaining, "No, I'm making a YouTube video," and she snapped back, "What's the difference?" I said, "The difference is that one is just playing a game, and the other is creating content for my audience of 3 million subscribers." And she did not like that. She started yelling, saying I was wasting my time on stupid shit that wasn't important, and even hinted that she'd break up with me if I didn't change. Huge red flag, right? But for some reason, I decided to ignore it. Fast forward to the 6-month mark. She was practically living at my house. She never went home. She would eat, sleep, and do everything at my place. And honestly, I was not feeling it. I thought things were moving way too fast. We'd only been dating for 6 months, and she was already treating my house like it was hers. The worst part was, I never even gave her the green light to move in. She just stayed over a couple of nights and then never left. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be rude, but it was starting to really bother me. One night we were in bed watching Netflix and I was just about to fall asleep. My eyes were closing, I was exhausted, and then she taps me on the shoulder. She says, "Hey, I want to get a bigger house." Immediately, I was wide awake. I was like, "What?" She said, "I want to move into a bigger place. This place is too small for both of us." I told her, I love my house, and no, it's not. Let me give you guys some context. This house was a 3-bedroom, 3-story house with a storage room that could be converted into another bedroom if needed. It had a living room, kitchen, basement, garage, everything you could need. It was a nice family home, plenty of space for a couple of kids even, and for just me and her, both in our early 20s, it was more than enough. So I told her that, and she got pissed. She said, "Yeah, it might be 3 bedrooms, but all the rooms are yours. It's your bedroom, your office, and a guest room. Why can't we turn the guest room into my room or my office?" And I was just sitting there like, yo, what the fuck? I never even agreed to her moving in, and now she wanted to revamp my house to suit her. So I calmly said, "Listen, in the future, if you want to maybe take the guest room and make it your own space, we can talk about that. But right now, you're not even officially moved in. You're just staying here, and we've never had a real conversation about you actually living here. So let's take a step back, figure out what we're doing, and then we can talk about the rest." I thought I handled that pretty well. I wasn't mean, I wasn't yelling, I was just being honest. But she freaked out. She started screaming, "Do you even want me here? Do you even want to be with me?" I thought this was our place, not just yours. Then she got up, stormed over to the bedroom door, and before she walked out, she picked up my dirty clothes hamper and threw it at me. This thing weighed like 20 pounds, and it hit me right in the head. I couldn't believe it. I jumped out of bed, followed her out of the room, and I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? You just threw that at my head. This is how you deal with shit? You throw things at people?" She screamed back, "Oh, like you're not the most selfish person in the world." And I was done. I said, "Get out of my house, right now. It's mine, not yours. I pay for everything, the rent, the utilities, all of it. You don't pay for shit and my name is on everything, so get out." Maybe that was harsh, but she literally threw a fucking hamper at my head. She didn't like that, of course. She said, "How am I supposed to get home? I don't have money for an Uber. I don't even have my house key. I'll be stuck outside all night." I told her, "Fine, you can sleep on the couch, but at 6 in the morning you're out of here." She asked, "Are you breaking up with me?" I said, "I don't know, but stay out here. I don't want anything else thrown at my head." She said she was sorry, but I just went back into my room, locked the door, and tried to sleep. I was pissed. A few hours later, I woke up around 7 in the morning. I went out to the living room to check if she was still there, but she was gone. I thought, okay, maybe she went back to her parents' place. I decided to get an early start on my day, so I went into my office to work on a video. But when I walked in, I realized something. My computer was left on all night. I didn't have it set to go into sleep mode automatically, and I must have forgotten to turn it off. I didn't think much of it at first. I just sat down, started recording, edited a couple of videos, and then went to upload them. That's when I noticed something was off. My YouTube channel was signed out. It usually only signs out if the password gets changed. I tried signing back in, and sure enough, it said, "Your password was changed 2 hours ago." I started panicking. I grabbed my phone to do a password reset, but two-step verification was disabled. That's when I knew she did something. I called her immediately. She answered, "Hello." I said, "I just tried to log into my YouTube channel and it says my password was changed 2 hours ago. I left my computer on all night, so you were the only one who could have done it. Just tell me the truth. Did you do something?" And she just starts laughing. This maniacal, evil-sounding laugh. She said, "Yeah, I might have had something to do with that." I couldn't believe it. I said, "Are you fucking serious?" She said, "Look, I'm not keeping it from you. I just want to have a conversation about our relationship and whether or not you're breaking up with me. After that, maybe you can have your channel back." I was losing my mind at this point. She was holding my channel hostage, everything I'd worked for, everything I cared about. I said, "What do you want?" She said, "I just told you. I want to come over and talk about our relationship. After that, maybe you'll get it back." I said, "Are you blackmailing me into staying with you?" She said, "No, I just want to talk." I was like, "I don't like this maybe shit. That's my life's work." She said, "Well, I'm the one with the password, so you're not in a position to make demands." It felt like I was arguing with a supervillain. I said, "Fine, come over." She said, "When?" I said, "Now." 20 minutes later, she showed up. I had to put on the nicest poker face of my life. I wanted to tell her to fuck off, but I couldn't. She had my channel. So she came in and we sat on the couch. I put on the biggest fake smile and said, "Listen, I've been thinking and you're right. What I said was fucked up. This house is as much yours as it is mine. I really care about you and I don't want to lose what we have." Immediately, a tear rolled down her face. She said, "That's all I wanted to hear." Then she gave me a huge hug and pulled out her phone, showing me the new login for my YouTube channel. She had made the password something really ridiculous, but I didn't care. I ran upstairs, reset the password, put two-step verification back on, and made sure everything was locked down. No! She was watching me do all of this, standing in the doorway. Once I was done, I locked my computer, looked at her, and said, "We're done. Get the fuck out." The look on her face, pure defeat. She said, "What do you mean? I thought we were okay. You just apologized." I said, "Are you kidding me? I just did what I had to do to get my channel back. Now that I have it, we're done. Get out." She started crying. "Can we just talk?" I said, "No, leave now. If you're not out of here in 10 seconds, I'm calling the cops." She got this furious look on her face, stormed into my bedroom, and came back holding my dirty clothes hamper, the same one she'd thrown at me the night before. She wound up to throw it again, and I just yelled, "We're not doing this again." She threw it, but I caught it and tossed it to the side. I screamed, "I get the fuck out of my house." And finally, she left. After she was gone, I just sat there on my couch for an hour, listening to music, trying to process what the hell had just happened. I called my friend Christian, and he came over. We talked for a good hour about everything. He couldn't even believe it at first. He knew she could be a little clingy, but he never thought she'd do something like this. After I told him everything, he gave me a hug and said he was sorry I had to go through it. It was just such a surreal experience. I wanted to tell this story right away, but I couldn't. I was worried about what she'd do. If she was crazy enough to do all of that, who knows what else she was capable of. So, I waited until I was in a new place, and now I feel safe enough to tell it. Anyway, that's the story of my crazy ex-girlfriend, one of the wildest stories I think I'll ever tell. Moral of the story, don't move too fast in your relationships. Make sure you know who you're dating before you let them into your life like that. Establish your boundaries early on. Don't let someone walk all over you like I did. I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video and feel free to leave your own stories in the comments below. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Today's story time is definitely a crazy one, and it's one I thought I'd already told years ago because it was that insane. But I guess I never did, so it's time to talk about it. Also, just a heads up, your boy's been keeping up with the daily uploads at 5 or 5:30 every day, so make sure to check back then for new stories. Anyway, let's get into it because I really want to talk about this one. Today's story takes place in 2018. Back then, I wasn't really up to much besides doing YouTube. I wasn't smoking weed, I wasn't experimenting with psychedelics, none of that. I was pretty much straight edged, just playing video games, making videos, and hanging out with friends, kind of like I am now. So, on this particular day, I was chilling in my room, not doing much, when my friend Jason hit me up. Now, the thing about Jason, he always needed to be doing something either dangerous, stupid, or just getting high to have fun. It was kind of his thing, and honestly, it always made me a little nervous because every time I hung out with Jason, I ended up doing something either illegal or really dumb. But that day, I was bored and I had nothing else to do, so I said yes. A couple hours later, I was at Jason's house, hanging out in his basement playing Xbox, and sure enough, Jason comes up with this bright idea involving both getting high and something illegal. He looks at me and says, "Yo, I picked up some acid today, you wanna take some?" I was like, "I don't know, man." Then he hits me with, "Alright, second question, do you wanna take some and then go explore this abandoned high school?" I just stared at him like, "Jason, seriously?" So, first of all, he asks if I wanna do psychedelics. Then, as if that's not enough, he follows it up by asking if I want to break into an abandoned school while tripping. Jason was like, "Buddy, it isn't breaking in, the door got busted down by someone else, so it's just open now," and he reminded me, "We've tripped together before, so what's the difference now?" I told him, "It's not that I don't want to have fun, it's just that every time I trip now, I end up having a bad experience. Plus, I don't want to mix that with breaking into some sketchy building." He eventually backed off and said, "Alright, you don't have to, but I'm still gonna do it." I was like, "Alright, whatever." So later that night, it was around 7 or 8 p.m, another friend of ours came over. We'll call him Eric. So now it's Jason, Eric, and me. We're sitting on Jason's couch and they both decide to take the acid. I was still set on not taking it, but when the time came, the acid was just sitting there on the table, staring at me. They each took 2 tabs, which in my opinion is way too much. No need for that at all. And I'm sitting there, staring at this tab thinking, maybe this time will be different. Maybe I won't have a bad trip. Maybe I'll actually have a good time. So, like an idiot, I decided to do it. I took 1 tab and oh boy, I wish I could go back in time and stop myself because I was in for one of the roughest nights of my life. About 30 or 40 minutes went by and nothing really out of the ordinary was happening. I was just chilling, having a good time. But then, about an hour to an hour and a half in, things started to get really weird. I started seeing visuals, I felt all giggly and jittery, and it was definitely coming on fast and strong. My friends were way deeper into it than I was. They were on another planet at that point. But then something strange started happening. About 2 hours into the trip, I started feeling extremely nauseous. I'd never had that happen before. It felt like I'd swallowed a bowling ball, like I had this giant rock in my stomach. I was feeling so sick, and the room started spinning. It was something I'd never experienced before, and within 10 minutes, I knew I was going to throw up. I had to get to a bathroom ASAP. I ran upstairs to Jason's bathroom, and of course, I ended up puking. I just couldn't hold it in. I threw up for probably 5 minutes straight. After that, I went back downstairs, and my friends were getting ready to go to the abandoned building. I looked at them and said, "Guys, I can't go. I just threw up. I feel like absolute shit. The room's spinning. I can barely stand up." Jason took one look at me and said, "Dude, you actually don't look good at all, holy fuck." I was like, "Yeah, I know, I don't feel good at all." And right after I said that, it was like perfect timing. I started feeling super lightheaded, like I couldn't stand, the room was spinning and I knew I was about to pass out. Before I could even think or say anything else, everything went black and I passed out. I can't tell you what happened right after that because, well, I was unconscious. But I can assume that Jason did the right thing because when I came to about 5 or 10 minutes later, I was being carried up the basement stairs on a stretcher by paramedics, being wheeled out to an ambulance. I remember coming to on that stretcher thinking, fuck. Not only did I pass out and not only did I feel like absolute garbage, but now I was headed to the hospital. So yeah, I got driven to the hospital in the ambulance. Jason rode with me, and when we got there, they brought me into a room and started running all sorts of tests. I had to talk to a doctor and I told him the truth. I said, yeah, I took LSD. They ran blood tests, they did a whole bunch of other stuff, and they even had to do a brain scan because when I passed out, I hit my head on the table. Luckily, I didn't have any serious injuries, just a mild concussion. After running all those tests, they all came back inconclusive. The doctor said they couldn't really find anything specifically wrong with me. He said it was probably a combination of things. First, I was super dehydrated because I hadn't been drinking any water that day. Second, I'd eaten fast food all day, and he thought maybe I had some kind of mild food poisoning. Or third, the acid just triggered a horrible panic attack since I'm already a pretty anxious person. I even asked the doctor if he thought the acid could have been laced, and he said, anything's possible, but based on the tests we're running, there's nothing in your system that we can see that would indicate that. He said it was probably just a combination of factors: anxiety, dehydration, bad food, everything combined. By the way, I'm summarizing this pretty quickly. That whole process took like 6 or 7 hours. It was a long, long night in the hospital, and I did not enjoy it at all. But luckily in the end, I was okay. And I have to give a shout out to Jason and Eric. Even though they were both tripping hard, they actually handled the situation pretty well. Most people on 2 tabs of acid wouldn't know what the hell to do, but they did the right thing. Also, they didn't have any of the symptoms I had, which leads me to believe the acid wasn't laced. They took more than I did, and they were fine. Moral of the story? Don't do what I did in this story time. And if you have a gut feeling, don't go against it. I knew I shouldn't have taken that acid, but I did anyway, and it led to one of the scariest nights of my life. Anyway, that's the story. In the end, I was okay, my friends were okay, and I came out of it with just a mild concussion and a pretty terrifying experience. I hope you guys enjoyed the story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So, today's story time is definitely a pretty scary one of those that I thought I told a long time ago, but apparently I never did. So here I am, finally getting to it. Definitely a break from all the funny stuff I've been talking about lately. I hope you guys enjoy this one. If you do, leave a like on the video and let's get into today's story time. Today's story takes place when I was 19 years old, back when I was living in LA. Now, 19 was an interesting time for me. I had been in LA for a bit, and honestly, I was starting to get pretty sick of it. I was tired of my apartment, tired of the scene, tired of just about everything that came with being in LA. I was getting ready to move back to New York for a while and get away from it all. But, right before I was about to make the move, I ended up meeting this girl at a party. I won't go into too much detail about her, but I will say she was also a YouTuber and a streamer, kind of like me. She didn't have millions of followers or anything, but she still had a decent following, like 100,000 or 150,000 followers, give or take. And because she was an attractive streamer, unfortunately, that also came with its fair share of weirdos. She had some stalker type guys that just wouldn't leave her alone. I mean, she was pretty private, didn't even use a face cam half the time, but it didn't matter. There was always some creep who would manage to find out her personal info and harass her. The worst of them all was this one guy she called her main stalker. This dude was legit crazy. He would find her phone number, text her at all hours of the night, and even showed up at her house when she was still living in her hometown before she moved to LA. Just a grade A weirdo, and not in a good way. When I started hanging out with her, she told me about this guy. She was like, just so you know, I've got this stalker who won't leave me alone. I've blocked him on everything, called the cops, done everything I could think of, but he just keeps coming back. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for the heads up. Me and her started hanging out a lot, got pretty close, and eventually, I'd say we were dating. We never called each other boyfriend and girlfriend, but we were going on dates, staying over at each other's places, spending a lot of time together. You know, the whole deal. I'd say we were unofficially official, if that makes any sense. And I was cool with that. Neither of us were trying to jump into anything super serious at that point. Right before I was going to move back to New York, she suggested we rent an Airbnb together for a week. She thought it would be fun for us to just hang out without bouncing between our apartments, just have our own little place for a while. We found this nice little house up in the hills, beautiful spot, surprisingly cheap too, and we decided to go for it. So we booked it for a week, just the 2 of us, no friends allowed. I was excited. I really liked her, she seemed to like me, and it sounded like a nice break from all the chaos in LA. Fast forward to us arriving at the Airbnb. The first day was totally normal. We got there, checked in, and just relaxed. We watched some Netflix, sat in the hot tub, made some dinner. It was a nice, chill first night. At one point, she took a Snapchat of the view from the house, and I even said something about it. I was like, "Hey, are you sure that's a good idea? You've got those stalkers, right?" She looked at the photo and was like, "Nah, it's cool. It's blurry, it's nighttime, and no one can tell where we are from this." She showed me the snap, and she was right. It was just some blurry lights from the LA skyline, nothing identifiable. So I let it go, and she posted it. The rest of the night was normal. The next day is where things went bad. We woke up, made breakfast, hung out for a while, and then went out for a couple of hours to visit a friend. We didn't have much planned after that, so we decided to head back to the Airbnb and just chill there for the night. When the Uber pulled up to the Airbnb, we immediately noticed something was wrong. There was a car in the driveway, not our car and not anyone we knew, just a random car parked in front of the house. I turned to her and asked if she recognized it, and she said no. I didn't recognize it either. The Uber driver ended the ride, but when I started to get out, he said, "Hey, if you guys don't know whose car that is, feel free to stay in the car until you figure it out." I thanked him and decided to take him up on the offer. I called up the owner of the Airbnb and asked if anyone was supposed to be there, maybe a cleaner or something, but he said no. He said no one should be there while we were renting it, and it was definitely not anyone he knew. He told us to hang tight and that he was on his way over. He said he lived nearby, so he'd be there in a few minutes. About 10 minutes later, the owner pulled up. He got out of his car and slowly approached the house. I could see him looking at the front door, and suddenly his expression changed. He looked scared. He bent down and picked something up off the ground. He turned around and showed it to us. It was part of the front door frame. The door had been broken and it was hanging off the hinges. He managed to swing it open without a key, even though we had locked it when we left. At that point, I knew someone had broken in. I waved for the owner to come back to the car. I didn't want him going in there alone, approaching whoever might be inside. He came back and the girl I was with started dialing 911. About 15 minutes later, the cops arrived. We sat there the entire time, just waiting in fear, wondering if whoever was inside was going to come out. The police went in, and not even 2 minutes later, they came out with a guy in handcuffs. I had never seen this dude before. He looked to be in his 30s, kinda dirty, not well kept, and he looked pissed. And as they brought him out, his eyes locked onto our Uber, and he stared right at the girl I was with. Not at me, not at the driver, just at her. A death stare. I turned around to look at her, and she had tears in her eyes. I asked if she was okay and she said, "You don't understand, I know him." It hit me all at once. I was like, "Holy shit, is that him?" She nodded. "Yep, that's him." It was the stalker, the same guy who had shown up at her house back in her hometown, the guy who had been harassing her for years. She was crying, but she also said she was happy he got arrested. She said, "These are happy, sad tears. I'm glad he got caught, but I'm also terrified that he came all this way." After the cops took him away, we talked to them for a bit and explained what was going on. She talked more to them than I did since she knew the guy and had more history with him. He got arrested, thankfully, and went to jail. I'm not sure what the exact charges were, but I imagine it was breaking and entering, maybe vandalism too, since he broke a few things inside. The creepiest part? When the cops questioned him, he said he was there to hang out with her, like he was just a fan wanting to meet her. He wasn't trying to rob us or anything, he was just obsessed. And when they asked him how he found the address, he said he saw her Snapchat, recognized the area based on the view, and then searched Airbnb listings until he found a match. He even identified the brand of the hot tub in the Snapchat and matched it to the Airbnb listing. Just pure next level stalker behavior. To this day, I don't know what would have happened if we'd walked into that house without the cops there. If I had to guess, he probably would have hurt us, and that's terrifying to think about. In the end, that guy went to jail and both of us moved out of LA about a month later. I'm not going to say where she moved, just in case that weirdo is still out there somewhere lurking, but she moved far away, and so did I. Moral of the story? Always lock your doors, don't engage with weirdos on the internet, and if you can, get some security cameras. Stay safe out there, guys. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So, judging by the title, I'm sure you can see today's story time is a rather interesting one. Awkward, funny, and very, very LA. So I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like on the video if you do, and let's jump right into today's story time. Today's story starts off during a regular day when I was in LA. This was, I think, my 6th month of living there at this point. I was pretty used to it, you know? I knew the ins and outs, had my friend group, and things were going well. For the first half of my time in LA, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, if there's one thing I'm sure all of you know about LA, it's that it's kind of weird. There are definitely a lot of unusual things happening compared to most people's hometowns or other parts of the US. You can come across all sorts of bizarre situations, and today was no exception. It all starts off as a normal day in LA. Like I said, I was about 6 months into living there, just chilling in my apartment, working on a YouTube video. As I was finishing up, I got a text from my buddy George. Now, George was one of my closest friends in LA. Super normal dude, actually reminded me a lot of people from back home. He hits me up and goes, "Yo, what are you doing tonight?" I reply, "Nothing much." And then he says, "Wanna come to a party with me? I don't wanna go alone." I was like, "I'm down." So fast forward a couple of hours, it's around 9 or 10 at night, George pulls up to my place and we head to this party together. Now, this was an influencer party. LA has a ton of these. If you're not familiar, an influencer party is basically where YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagram people, music artists, anyone in the social media space gets together and lets their ego talk for 5 hours straight while everyone tries to out-clout each other. Honestly, most of these parties are incredibly superficial and kinda cringe. So you might be wondering, Austin, why were you there if they're so cringy? Well, back then, when I was 18 or 19, I thought I was hot shit. I thought going to these parties with people I followed or admired growing up was sick. It took me a while to realize how much of a cringe dork I was for that, but hey, you live, you learn. To be fair, not everyone at these parties is bad. I've met some cool down-to-earth people there too. But I'd say 70–80% of the time, you run into people who are just completely wrapped up in the social media game. Anyway, George and I get to this party, and it's packed. We're talking people everywhere. Within half an hour, it's super crowded, but I'm getting to meet a lot of new faces. Some people I knew from the internet, others I didn't. Things were going pretty well. About an hour into the party, something kinda interesting happens. I see these 4 girls come in with 2 guys and they look really familiar. You know that feeling when you're sure you've seen someone before, but you can't quite place them? Yeah, that was it. They were definitely influencers or YouTubers, had that look. I didn't say anything to them though, just made a mental note that they must be pretty well known. Fast forward about an hour and a half into the party, and at this point, George and I are on the 4th floor of this beautiful house, taking shots, hanging out, talking with friends, just vibing. And your boy starts needing to pee, like bad. So I walk up to the dude throwing the party and ask, "Yo, where's your bathroom?" He tells me it's on the 3rd floor to the left. Simple enough, right? So I head down to the 3rd floor, looking for this bathroom. I'm opening doors, but they're all guest bedrooms, or some other random rooms. I'm thinking, man, this house is insane. I mean, every door I open just leads to another massive bedroom, and none of them are bathrooms. And each room is empty, bed made, no one in sight. Finally, I get to the last door on the 3rd floor, and the light is on. I can see it through the crack in the door, so I figure it's probably the bathroom. I knock on the door, no response. I slowly turn the knob, peek inside, and, well, it's not a bathroom. It's another bedroom, except this one isn't empty. Remember those 4 girls and 2 guys I mentioned earlier? Yeah, it's them, and they're not just hanging out in there. They're really hanging out, in the middle of a full-on threesome. 2 girls, 1 guy, no clothes, and to top it off, they're filming it. The guy had his phone propped up on one of those vlogger gimbal things, recording everything. So of course, I do what any sane person would do. I turn around, shut the door as fast as I can, and I start power walking back up to the 4th floor. I did not want to be in that situation, but as I'm walking up the stairs, it all clicks. It hits me. I know why those people look so familiar. They weren't just influencers, they were adult influencers. You know what I mean? They were in that industry and they were filming content for the hub. And all I could think was, man, I really hope they didn't have other cameras in there filming from different angles, because if I end up in the background of one of those videos, that's just next level awkward. Can you imagine scrolling through and there's my dumbass in the corner of the screen, peeking in, realizing I shouldn't be there? Yeah, no thanks. Anyway, I'm heading back up the stairs, just trying to forget what I saw and holding my pee until I find another bathroom. That's when I hear someone behind me. Yo, bro! I turn around and it's one of the dudes from that room. He doesn't have a shirt on, just a towel wrapped around him, half naked. He goes, "Did you just try to open that door back there?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, my bad, man. I was just looking for the bathroom. The dude upstairs said it was on this floor to the left, and I must have opened the wrong door. I knocked, but I don't think you guys heard." He's surprisingly chill about it, like, "Nah, no worries at all. Actually, you had the right room. The bathroom's attached to that bedroom. We were just kinda in your way." "My bad. You can come use it if you want." At first, I'm like, "Nah, dude, it's cool. I'll find another one." But he insists, "No, come on, it's fine." So, he leads me back into the room. Keep in mind, everyone is still very much not dressed. They're all just chilling on the bed, taking a break, I guess. They see us come in and they're all laughing, obviously knowing I walked in on them earlier. I'm just like, hey everyone. One of the girls smiles and goes, hey, how you doing? I'm like, pretty good. Sorry for interrupting the vid. She just laughs and says, nah, it's all good. We needed a break anyway. So, the dude leads me to the bathroom, I do my thing, wash my hands, and when I come back out, they're all still there, getting ready to start filming again. I'm like, alright, have a great night everyone. And the guy who helped me find the bathroom says, yo, I gotta say, your voice sounds so familiar. I'm like, oh, does it? He's like, yeah dude, are you a YouTuber or something? I swear I know you from somewhere. I'm like, yeah, I do YouTube. He's like, wait Luna, and I'm like, that's me. He's like, no way bro, I grew up watching you, this is crazy. And I'm like, damn, how old are you? He's like, 19. Keep in mind, this dude was older than me, but I guess he still grew up watching my content. Then one of the girls speaks up, oh, you do YouTube? What's your channel? I tell her, Luna or Austin FFA. She looks me up and goes, oh, I've seen you before. And I'm like, cool. So here I am in this incredibly awkward situation. These people are completely naked, I'm being recognized by one of them, and the other one knows who I am too. It's surreal. After a bit more small talk, they're like, alright, well, we should probably get back to filming. I'm like, yeah, I'll let you guys do your thing. Then the dude says, yo, when I was watching your videos back in the day, that whole Luna watches porn meme was going around in the comments. Now you can really say you've watched it. I start dying laughing, and so does he. Some of the other people in the room laugh too, but they clearly have no idea what he's talking about. But I did, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. Anyway, after that I dapped him up, immediately regretted it because, you know, germs, and ran upstairs to wash my hands again. Then I told George and my other friends what just happened, and they were shocked. It was hilarious. Definitely one of the funniest, craziest party experiences I've ever had, and it pretty much sums up my experience in LA. You just never know what you're gonna get in that city. So yeah, moral of the story, always knock before you enter a room, maybe knock twice, honestly. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments below, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys, it's Austin here, or Luna. So today's story time is a pretty crazy one of those that makes you just go, did that really just happen? I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like on the video if you do, and let's jump right into today's story. So, today's story time is about the time I caught my teacher smoking, and not just any smoking, but literally smoking in the school bathroom. Yeah, let's get into it. This all starts off as a regular day back in 8th grade. 8th grade was one of those years I actually enjoyed. It was my last year of middle school, and middle school for me was honestly a lot of fun. I mean, grades didn't matter as much as high school did. At least I don't think they did. I wasn't too stressed about it, you know? This isn't me saying that if you're in middle school, you should just completely slack off, but hey, compared to high school, it was a lot more relaxed. Enjoy those middle school years while you got them. Anyway, this all starts off as a regular day in 8th grade. I jumped out of bed super late, the kind of late where you can literally feel the panic set in. The boss was about to be at my house any minute and I had to get ready fast. So, I ran into the bathroom, brushed my teeth as quickly as I could, ran back into the kitchen, grabbed a Pop-Tart and ran into my room to throw on whatever clothes I could find. I was biting into that Pop-Tart while getting dressed, but because I just brushed my teeth, it tasted like absolute crap. It was one of those wild berry flavors, which by the way, best flavor, no debate, but mixed with toothpaste? Nah, not it. After that, I grabbed my backpack, ran out the front door, and somehow made it onto the bus just as it pulled up. I was on my way to school. The first half of the day went by pretty normally, nothing really out of the ordinary, just your average school day. And then it was time for ELA, English Language Arts. I grabbed my stuff from my locker, went to my ELA class, and sat down in the very back left corner. Now, usually this class was super boring, but on this day, I was actually interested. We were reading a book, and it was honestly a good story, one of those rare times where I actually wanted to keep reading. So, there I was, chilling, having a good class for once, and then about halfway through, I felt it. That all too familiar urge to pee. I had chugged way too much Gatorade during the last period, so I got up and asked my teacher, "Hey, can I go to the bathroom?" She said, "Sure, but hurry back." I left the classroom and walked down the hallway to the closest bathroom. As soon as I walked in, something felt off. It smelled like someone was in there ripping an entire pack of cigarettes. I was like, okay, weird, but whatever. I walked over to the sink, checked myself out in the mirror, made sure my hair was at least halfway decent, and then walked over to one of the bathroom stalls because, well, I had to pee. Now, usually I would knock before opening a stall door, but this one was already cracked open, which usually means it's not locked. So, I just swung it open, ready to do my thing, and there she was, my math teacher, in the bathroom stall, cigarette hanging out of her mouth, staring at me like a deer caught in headlights. She looked horrified, like she just got caught committing the worst crime in history. I instantly jumped back, slammed the stall door shut, and fast walked right out of that bathroom. I was like, nope, not dealing with that. I went to another bathroom down the hallway instead and used one of the urinals. No more surprises for me, thanks. While I was doing my business, I couldn't stop thinking, what the hell just happened? Why was she in the student bathroom? There are literally staff bathrooms upstairs. Why couldn't she just use one of those? But I guess that cigarette just couldn't wait. After I finished, I went back to my ELA class, sat down, and tried to act like nothing happened. I went back to reading, trying to get back into the story. Then, not even 5 minutes later, I hear a knock on the classroom door. I look up, and there she is, my math teacher. She opens the door and she goes, "Hey, can I borrow Austin real quick? I need to talk to him about something." My ELA teacher says, "Sure, go ahead." So, I get up, grab my stuff, and walk out into the hallway with her, and she's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hi." And bro, she still reeked of cigarettes. Like, she just smoked, and she's here trying to have this serious conversation with me. I was honestly shocked she even came to get me right after. I thought she would just let it go or talk to me about it later in math class, but nah, here we were. She says, "Okay, I need to talk to you about what just happened in the bathroom." I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "First of all, there's no excuse for what I was doing. It was completely inappropriate, and I'm so sorry." I was like, "It's okay, it's fine." And she's like, "No, it's really not fine. I could have gone outside to my car. I could have waited until school was over. There's no excuse for me to be doing that in the school. That's just ridiculous. Also, I'm sorry I was in the boys' bathroom. The girls' one was closed." And then it hit me. She was in the boys' bathroom, which made the whole situation even weirder. I'm like, holy crap. She could have gone to the girls' bathroom down the hall, the teacher's bathroom, or, better yet, just not smoked at all. But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded and said, "It's okay, it's fine." She kept apologizing, and eventually she said, "If you want to tell the principal, I understand." I told her, "Honestly, you've always been nice to me, so I'm not going to tell on you. But, maybe don't do that again." She laughed nervously and said, "Trust me, I won't." So, I went back to class and just tried to get back to normal. For the next week, everything seemed fine. But then, about a month later, I went to math class and she wasn't there. I thought, maybe she's just sick. But then she wasn't there the next day or the day after that. We just had this long-term sub who clearly had no idea what was going on. Finally, I asked the principal, "Hey, what happened to my math teacher?" She just looked at me and said, "Yeah, you could say she's not coming back." I'm like, "Why? What happened?" She wouldn't tell me, so I asked, "Does it have to do with smoking in the bathroom?" And her face just went pale. She goes, "How the hell did you know that?" I told her, maybe because I caught her doing it." She was shocked. She said, "Why didn't you tell anyone?" And I just shrugged. I felt bad. I thought she wouldn't do it again. And the principal goes, "Yeah, well, she did." So, yeah, that's how my math teacher got fired for smoking in the boys' bathroom. Moral of the story? Don't rip cigs in the school bathroom. Not a good idea. Actually, don't smoke at all, but definitely not in school. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. After telling yesterday's story, I was reading through the comments and I saw one in particular where a dude was like, "Man, you gotta do more videos like this, these are the best kind." That seems to be the theme on this channel. Anytime I talk about some dumb shit I did back in school, or something crazy one of my friends pulled, it's always well received. So I got another one for you today. In my opinion, this one might even be crazier than yesterday's. Alright, maybe not crazier, but definitely on the same level. If you enjoy it, leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. Now, let's jump into today's story. So, today's story takes place back when I was in 10th grade. This was a weird time in my life because I was balancing a lot of different things. YouTube was starting to take off, which was exciting, but I was also struggling with school. I was pretty much failing most of my classes, trying to juggle everything, and it wasn't really working. Despite that, I wasn't really getting into trouble. I was kind of just keeping my head down, trying to stay out of drama and focusing on YouTube. But of course, this is the story of when I slipped up a bit and things went sideways. It all starts off as a regular day in 10th grade. I jumped out of bed, took a shower, and didn't even have time to eat breakfast. I ran out the door and got on my bus. I made it to school, went to my locker, and started my day. Around this time in 10th grade, I only had a few close friends. I had a lot of acquaintances, but only a handful of real friends, the kind you hang out with outside of school. My three best friends at the time were these three dudes we'll call Nathan, Caleb, and Jake. Nathan, Caleb, and Jake were my ride or die friends back then. I hung out with them pretty much every day, whether it was on Xbox, at school, or after school. We were tight. The thing about them though was that they were all kinds of crazy. Each of them had their own brand of madness. Nathan once snuck up to the roof of our school during lunch to smoke a blunt up there, which, let's be honest, is pretty fucking wild. Caleb was kind of the silent but deadly type. One time some kid was messing with him, bullying him pretty badly, so instead of fighting the guy, Caleb got his revenge by putting a dead rat in the kid's backpack. And then there's Jake, the kind of guy who never gave a shit. We once went to a Burger King after school, and he went into the bathroom and smoked weed in there, just casually. I might have even taken a hit, but that's beside the point. Now that you have an idea of how wild Nathan, Caleb, and Jake were, you can probably see where this is headed. It was a regular day in 10th grade. I got to school, grabbed my stuff from my locker, and started my day. The first few periods were pretty chill, nothing out of the ordinary. But then I got to 4th period, and that's where things started getting interesting. 4th period was always special because it was right before lunch. It was always one of my favorite classes of the day because I knew I was about to get a break. I had history class and Jake sat right next to me. I remember that day started off pretty normal. I was just sitting there, half paying attention to the teacher, trying to make sense of whatever he was talking about. And then Jake taps me on the shoulder and he's got that look in his eye, that look that always meant trouble. I look over at him and I'm like, "What's up, Jake?" And he just grins at me like, "Guess what I brought?" I roll my eyes. "An STD? He punches me in the arm. "You're not fucking funny, dude. Just guess." I play along. "Alright, fine. Weed?" He shakes his head. "Better." Now, I'm curious, so I ask him, "Alright, what is it?" He leans in real close and whispers in my ear, "I brought lean with me." I pull back. "Are you fucking stupid?" He just laughs. Maybe a little bit, yeah. I start laughing too, but the teacher catches us. He glares at us. "You two, what's so funny?" We both just look at him and say nothing. He stares at us for a moment, then goes, "Yeah, that's what I thought. No more talking." Jake and I both nod, and for the rest of class, we kept our mouths shut. No way were we going to risk getting sent to the principal's office and having Jake's bag searched. Finally, the bell rings, and it's lunchtime. Jake, Nathan, Caleb, and I head over to our usual lunch table and sit down. We're all eating, and I bring it up again. "Yo, Jake, you want to tell everyone what you got in your backpack?" Jake smirks and says, "Yeah, I brought some lean to school today." Nathan looks at him wide-eyed. "Bro, where the hell did you even get that? I don't know anyone who sells that shit." Jake shrugs. "My older brother's friend, he hooked me up." Caleb shakes his head. "And you just brought it with you to school?" Jake grins. "Yup," and pulls his backpack up onto the table. He unzips it just enough to show us the bottle. It was mixed into a Faygo cream soda bottle, but the liquid had this purple tint to it, and it was very obviously not just soda. Jake opens the bottle, takes a sip, and I'm just sitting there thinking, is this dude for real right now? Then he hands it to me, and I hesitate for a second. I'd been trying to stay out of trouble, but I thought, what's one sip gonna do? So I took a quick sip and handed it back to Jake. Then he passed it around the table, and all of us took a sip before he put it back in his bag. We were all looking around like, did we seriously just do that in the middle of the cafeteria? It was one of those moments where you realize just how dumb you're being, but it's already too late. Somehow, none of the teachers or lunch monitors noticed, but one person did. Of course, it had to be Andrew. Andrew was one of those kids who was always running to the teacher, a real goody two-shoes. He walks over to our table right after Jake puts the bottle away, and he's like, "Hey, was that Faygo?" Jake looks up. "Yeah, it was." Andrew frowns. "Why was it purple?" We all look at each other, and I'm thinking, oh shit. Jake, without missing a beat, goes, "Oh, I added some grape soda to it." Andrew looks confused. "Grape soda? Wouldn't that taste weird with cream soda?" Jake just shrugs. "I like it, alright? Don't judge me." And Andrew just goes, "Alright," and walks away. We all exhaled like, holy shit, that was close. We knew how lucky we were. If Andrew had told the teacher or questioned it more, we'd have been screwed. But for some reason, he just believed Jake and walked off. So yeah, we got away with it. Somehow. Looking back, it was one of the dumbest things I've ever done. I mean, who the hell drinks lean in the middle of a school cafeteria? We were grade 8 idiots. So yeah, moral of the story is, don't do what we did. Seriously, that was some next level stupidity, and I'm just lucky nothing worse happened. But yeah, guys, I thought this was a crazy little story that you'd enjoy. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good, guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So, after talking with my friends the other day, I realized there's a story I somehow never told on here. I don't know how it slipped through the cracks, but we're about to fix that. My friends couldn't believe I'd never shared this one, and after thinking it over, neither could I. This is one of those classic peak dumbass Luna stories that just screams 2015 vibes. So, here we are. Buckle up, because today's story is about the time I tripped absolute balls on a school bus. Yeah, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. So, this all takes place during my last year of high school, right at the beginning of the year. I was just starting out, and honestly, I was at my peak dumbass level. Like, I had YouTube going well for me, and a solid future ahead, but for some reason, I was just on my reckless shit. You know how it is. Anyway, I woke up that day like it was any other day, rolled out of bed, scarfed down a Pop-Tart, didn't have time for anything else, and rushed to get ready. Then, I jumped on the bus to head to school. Now, I don't know if you guys had the same setup, but in my high school, the morning bus was different from the bus that took me home. It used to be the same bus both ways, with the same kids, but for whatever reason, once high school hit, they switched it up. My morning bus was chill. It was full of quiet kids, all keeping to themselves, listening to music, not bothering anyone. But my afternoon bus, that was an entirely different story. The kids on that bus were fucking demons. They'd jump from seat to seat, smack their heads against the ceiling when we hit bumps, smoke weed or cigarettes in the back, and the bus driver wouldn't give a single fuck. He just let it all happen. And honestly, that chaos was my kind of vibe back then. I fit right in with that crowd. Within the first week, I was good friends with everyone on that bus. Back then, I was as much of a dumbass as everyone else, and when I heard you could do whatever the hell you wanted, smoke weed, move around, talk to everyone, I thought, this is the shit. I couldn't wait for that bus ride home every day. Now, I'm gonna sound like a bit of a boomer here, but seriously, wear your damn seatbelt on the bus. I'm lucky I didn't snap my neck with the way we'd hit speed bumps, and I'd be flying out of my seat. But anyway, back to the story. This was just like any other school day. Woke up, got ready, went to school. The morning was normal, nothing out of the ordinary, but then, we got to my last period of the day, which was study hall. Study hall was basically just a period where we did nothing. Some kids did homework, but me, nah. I was scrolling Twitter, thinking about what time I wanted to upload my video that day, listening to music, just killing time. I had this friend who sat a couple tables down from me in study hall. His name was Harry, and he rode the same bus home as me. Now, Harry was probably the craziest kid on that whole damn bus. He didn't give a single fuck about anything. During study hall, he kept looking over at me, smiling, which was weird as hell. I couldn't tell if he had something devious planned or if he had a crush on me. So I got up, walked over to his table and whispered, "Yo, Harry, why do you keep staring at me like you wanna fuck me? What's up?" He was like, "Oh, fuck off, dude, no. I got something in my backpack I wanna tell you about." I was like, "You could have just texted me instead of staring at me for 10 minutes, dude." And he goes, "Whatever, I've got salvia." If you don't know what salvia is, it's this substance you can smoke, and it makes you trip balls for a short time. But the thing is, those trips are usually fucking horrible. It's the kind of shit that makes people jump out of windows, not a good time. And it's pretty bad for you, which is why it got made illegal in my state not long after this. So, when Harry told me he had salvia, my first reaction was like, "Why?" And he said, "Because I want to trip balls on the way home." I was like, "Wait, on the way home, you're gonna do it on the bus?" He goes, "Yeah, man, you want to do it with us?" I was like, "Who's us?" He named off 4 other kids who were also down to do this stupid shit on the bus. I told him, "Dude, just wait 10 minutes and do it at home. Get everyone over to your house." He said, "Nah, they live too far away. We can't walk or bike there. We're just gonna do it on the bus." I was like, "Bro, what if the trip doesn't wear off by the time you're home? You're gonna be a vegetable in the back seat." He goes, "Nah, don't scare me like that. It'll be fine. It only lasts 5 minutes. My stop's 15 minutes from the school. It'll be fine." So I said, "Alright man, if you say so." Then he asked if I was down and I was like, "Probably not, but maybe." Fast forward 30 minutes, the bell rings, school lets out and we all head to the buses. I get on the bus, sit in the back, and Harry sits across from me. 10 minutes later, everyone else is on and we start driving away from the school. Immediately, Harry pulls out his backpack, grabs a little bong and starts packing the salvia. Everyone crowds around and I'm sitting there, debating whether or not I want to do this. I'd done it before and it was a horrible trip, but I thought, maybe this time will be different. I don't know why I thought smoking that shit on the school bus would make it better, but for some reason, I convinced myself it would. I saw Harry take a rip, then another friend, and they were both okay, giggling and having fun. So I thought, fuck it, my turn. I took a rip of that shit without a second thought. The minute I exhaled, I felt like my entire body was disintegrating, like I was literally fading away, Thanos snap style. It was some wild endgame shit. But then I told myself, nah, you're not disintegrating, relax, and everything came back together. The pieces just reassembled and I was like, okay, I'm fine. But then, as I looked around, I still knew I was on the school bus, but everything looked different. The whole bus turned into this bright, fiery orange and red, like a fucking sun. I know that sounds insane, but that's what the trip was. We were sitting in the middle of a giant sun, still in our bus seats, but everything was on fire. One half of me was terrified because it felt like I was sitting in a ball of flames, but the other half of me knew I was just tripping and tried to bring myself back to reality. It was like I was having half a bad trip and half an okay trip, constantly telling myself, you're not gonna die, it's just a bus, not a ball of fire. Eventually, it started wearing off. I came back to reality, probably 5 or 10 minutes later. I was the last one to come out of it because I'd smoked last. When I came back, everyone was staring at me, smiling. I looked at them and asked, how were your trips? They said, good. How was yours? And I said, good. Why? One of them said, dude, you look like you just saw a fucking demon or something. I was like, what? He said, yeah, your eyes were wide open the whole time. Another friend chimed in, dude, you didn't blink once. I swear your eyes were bloodshot. I didn't even notice, but apparently I looked fucked up. After that, we decided not to do anymore. We all realized that maybe this wasn't something we should casually fuck with. Harry put the bong away, and we just rode the rest of the way home like normal. I was actually the last stop on the bus, so I had plenty of time to come down, think about what had just happened, and process it all. By the time I got home, I jumped on Xbox and told all my friends. They didn't believe me, and honestly, I don't blame them. It sounds insane. Looking back, the only thing I can think about is how fucking insane my friends were back then, and how careless my bus driver was. That dude would let us do anything, smoke cigarettes, weed, salvia, jump around like maniacs. He'd look back, see us acting like complete idiots, and just go, and keep driving. I don't remember his name, but he gave absolutely zero fucks. Moral of the story is, don't do any of the shit I talked about here. I was a big dummy back then, and you definitely don't want to end up in a situation like that. And if any of you are bus drivers out there, please don't be like my old one. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the story time. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment with your own stories, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. So, a lot of the time when I make these videos and tell these stories, I always get comments like, dude, Luna's got the biggest set of plot armor ever. You've got such plot armor. And, there are definitely a lot of stories where that seems to be the case. I'm not gonna lie, but there are also plenty where I don't have any plot armor at all. I can't always control the outcome of how screwed or unscrewed I am in these situations. I mean, sometimes I could have controlled it if I didn't get myself into the situation in the first place, but hey, that's beside the point. Today's story is definitely one of those where I'll probably be getting comments saying, dude, the plot armor is insane. This story takes place back in 2015. At this point, I was a teenager, chilling with my friends almost every day after school, or on days we decided to skip school. Around this time, life was pretty good. My YouTube channel was starting to take off, I had a solid group of friends, and I was nearing the end of school, which felt pretty good. I was just enjoying life. This all starts off like any other normal day back then. I woke up pretty late. It was the weekend, so none of my friends or I had school that day. I got up, took my time getting out of bed, took a shower, and had breakfast with my family. While I was at the table, my mom asked, do you have any plans today? Want to hang out with anyone? I shrugged and said, nah, I'm just hanging out here. But right after I said that, I got a text from my friend Jeremy. It said, yo, me, Eric, Jason, and Josh are all going to the mall. You're welcome to join us. They were inviting me out to the mall, and I wanted to go. I turned to my mom and said, actually, my friends just invited me to the mall. She nodded and asked, which friends? I told her, and she was like, yeah, that's fine. Just let me know what time you're leaving, and I'll let you know when to be back. I said, alright, sounds good. Around this time, I was on thin ice with my mom. I had just gotten off being grounded for some other dumb shit, so she was being a little strict. Normally, she didn't give me a curfew if it was a weekend, but that day I had one. About 10 minutes later, Jeremy texted me saying they wanted to meet up at the mall around 4 How. I went to tell my mom, yeah, I'm heading there at 4 How. She asked if I needed a ride, and I said, yeah, that'd be great. Usually I just walked, but a ride is always better. She agreed and said she'd drop me off at 4 How, and I had to be back by 8 bro. I was like, Alright, fair enough. So, 4 rolls around and I hop in the car with my mom. She drops me off at the mall and I meet up with my friends in the food court. Everything started off like a normal mall hangout. Usually when we went to the mall, we'd just walk around aimlessly, looking at stuff we couldn't afford because we were broke teenagers. We'd scrape enough money together to grab some Taco Bell or something at the food court, and that was usually the extent of our mall trips. This day was no different. We were walking around, going through stores, just hanging out. After about an hour, one of my friends, out of nowhere, goes, "Yo, anyone down to smoke?" He was talking about weed, and at the time, I was definitely in my stoner phase, listening to a bunch of Kid Cudi and Wiz Khalifa. So, of course, I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm down." Everyone else agreed too, so we decided to head out to smoke. Across the street from the mall was this park. It had 2 playgrounds, one that was still in use and another that was old, abandoned, and pretty much falling apart. We decided to head to the abandoned one because no one was ever over there, which meant no one would bother us or call the cops. We got to the old playground and it was just us, completely deserted. We started smoking and for the first 10-20 minutes, everything was normal. My friend was being super generous, letting us use his lighter, his bowl, his weed, just being a good dude. After about 25 minutes, I was definitely feeling it. I wasn't completely gone, but I was a little cooked and everyone else was too. We finished smoking and everything seemed fine. Smoking wasn't the problem. We didn't get caught, there were no issues. It was after we finished when things started to go wrong. We were just sitting there on this abandoned playground, talking shit. We were talking about people from school, video games, music, just being typical teenagers. At one point, we were ranking the top 5 rappers at the time. That was around the era when a bunch of new rappers were blowing up, and I had one friend trying to convince me that Macklemore was the best rapper of all time. I was like, bro, no. I like some of his songs, but best of all time? Nah. While we were talking, I noticed this guy in the distance. There was a trail that ran along the edge of the park, and I saw this guy walking along it. He looked like he was in his late 30s or early 40s, wearing athletic clothes, with earbuds in. At first glance, I thought nothing of it. Just some dude out for a walk, right? But as he got closer, I could tell something was off. He looked stressed, like he was arguing with someone over the phone. He was yelling, but there was no one around, so I figured he was talking through his earbuds. One of my friends noticed him too and joked, "Dude, that guy looks like he needs a blunt." I laughed and agreed, "Yeah, he looks like he's having a rough day." Then my friend, being the dumbass that he is, turned to me and said, "Yo, Austin, what are the odds you'll walk up to him and offer to sell him some weed to calm him down?" If you've never played What Are the Odds, it's basically a dare game. Someone says, "What are the odds you'll do?" Insert ridiculous thing, and you pick a number. If they guess the same number as you, you have to do it. So I said, 1 in 100, because I figured there was no way he'd guess it. But of course my friend goes, 3, 2, 1, and we both say, 73. I was like, fuck. All my friends started losing it, hyping it up like, "Yo, you have to do it now." So I was like, "Alright, fine. Fuck it. I'll do it." I got up and started walking towards this guy, already regretting it. He looked pissed off enough as it was, and the last thing he probably needed was some random stoned teenager walking up to him. But I went through with it anyway. I walked up to him and he took one of his earbuds out and looked at me like, "Can I help you?" I awkwardly said, "Hey man, you look stressed. Wanna buy some weed?" He looked at me like I had just asked the dumbest question in the world and said, "What?" I repeated, "You look stressed." He stared at me, then said, "Yeah, I look stressed and you wanna sell me some pot?" He looked pissed and I started getting nervous. He goes, "Let's see the weed. I'll buy some." "Yeah, I'm stressed, you're right." But he said it in such a sarcastic way, like he was definitely not serious. I panicked and said, "Oh, never mind, have a good day." He goes, No, show me the weed. I wanna buy some. How much you got?" I stammered, It's not mine." I quickly turned and walked back to my friends, telling them, "Guys, I think he wants to buy some, but I can't tell. He's mad as fuck." My friend, the one with the weed, goes, "Are you serious?" Before I could answer, we heard footsteps behind us. The guy had followed me back to the group. He walked up and said, "Alright, where's the weed? I'm trying to buy some." He still sounded sarcastic and annoyed, but my friend decided to go for it. He opened his backpack and pulled out the bag of weed, just a dub, like $20 worth. The guy looked at it and asked, "Can I see it?" My friend handed it over and the dude immediately put it in his back pocket and said, "You guys are real fucking stupid, you know that? You should be ashamed." We all just stared at him, confused as hell. Then he said, "You just gave weed to an officer of the law." He pulled out a badge and my stomach dropped. I thought, "Oh fuck, we're all going to jail." He looked at us and said, "Alright, let me see some ID. How old are you guys?" None of us had real IDs, just school IDs, but we handed them over. He asked how old we were and we told him most of us were 16, with one friend who was 17. He sighed and said, "Listen, I have more important things to be doing than dealing with this right now. I'm going to tell you something and I want you to listen very carefully. Number 1, leave this park immediately and go home. Number 2, never come back here to smoke weed again. Number 3, I don't want to see you smoking weed in public again. If I do, it won't end the way it did today. And number 4, stop smoking weed, period. Do I make myself clear?" We all nodded and mumbled, yeah, for sure." He said, "Have a good one," and walked away, still with our weed in his pocket. He didn't search us or anything, which was lucky because my friend still had the bowl in his backpack. It was weird, honestly. If I had to guess, this guy wasn't even on duty. He looked like he was just out for a walk and we happened to cross his path. He had his badge, but it didn't seem like he was working. I don't know, maybe he was undercover, but either way, we got lucky as hell. After he left, we all just stood there, unsure what to do. We couldn't go home yet, but we definitely didn't want to stay at the park. So, we decided to walk to a Walmart a couple of miles away and just hang out there for a while. We walked up and down the aisles doing nothing for about an hour until I finally decided to call my mom to come pick me up. Everyone else did the same, either got a ride or walked home. When I got home, I jumped on Xbox with my friends and whispered into my mic, "Yo, the craziest shit just happened." I told him the whole story, still in disbelief. I mean, it's not every day that you accidentally try to sell weed to an undercover cop and somehow get away with it. We got off easy, especially considering how strict things were with weed back then. It was illegal pretty much everywhere, so this could have ended way worse. So yeah, moral of the story, don't be like young Luna, don't do dumb shit like this, it's not worth it. And that's the story of how I thought I was about to sell weed to an undercover cop, and he tricked us hard. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that dude went home and smoked it himself. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. Yo, what's good guys? Austin here, or Luna. Since starting YouTube back in 2014, I've had a lot of crazy and odd things happen to me because of it. I've told many of those stories on this channel, but I've never told this one. It doesn't directly involve me, but it kinda does, and I thought you guys would enjoy hearing about it. If you do, leave a like on the video, and let's just get into it. Today's story time is about the time somebody swatted my girlfriend. Yeah, not something you want happening to your girlfriend, or anyone you care about, or anyone in general. Swatting is super messed up, as we've all learned, and it's not funny. But yeah, let's get into it. This story takes place when I was 16 years old. This was when my YouTube channel really started to pop off and things were changing fast. Everything was new to me, I never had followers before, and I never made videos for an audience. It was also new for the people around me, like my family, my girlfriend, and my friends. No one really understood what I had going on. For example, my mom saw me playing video games all the time, and then suddenly thousands of people were watching me play. It was confusing for everyone. At this point, my girlfriend and I were in a pretty good spot in our relationship, as good as it could be for two 16-year-olds. I was starting to make some money from YouTube, which was cool because I could buy nice things, take us out on cute dates, stuff like that. One night, I called her up and said, "Hey, I want to take you out on a nice date. You want to go to this restaurant I found and then see a movie after?" She said, "Yeah, that sounds awesome." So, I walked to her house and we walked to the restaurant together. Neither of our parents were home and we didn't have cars yet, so walking was the only option. Luckily, she lived close to the main part of the city, so we could get to the restaurant in about 20 minutes. We got there, got seated, and started hanging out. Just talking, ordering appetizers. Everything was going great. After we sat down, my girlfriend wanted to post on social media and show her friends and family the nice restaurant we were at. She took a photo of the front of the menu on the table and posted it on her Facebook. Now, I didn't think anything of it at the time, but apparently the menu had the restaurant name and address on it. Even if I had noticed, I probably wouldn't have stopped her because I didn't think anyone would go out of their way to swat us in public. I also didn't think any of my fans knew who my girlfriend was or her Facebook, so I wasn't worried about it. Anyway, she posted the photo with a caption like, "Eating good" or something, just a classic social media flex. After that, we ordered our entrees, ate, and hung out for about an hour. Everything was great, right up until the end of the date, when things took a turn. The waitress came over and asked if we wanted dessert. We said no, and she gave me the check. I was signing it, tipping her. We were literally about to stand up and leave. Just as I was signing my name, I heard a deep, angry voice shout, "Is there an Austin in here?" I looked up to my left, thinking, surely he's not talking about me. But then I saw two police officers at the front door of the restaurant. I hesitated for a second before raising my hand and saying, I'm Austin." One of the officers said, "Can you come here?" He walked me outside, holding my arm, and once we got outside, I saw about 11 other cops. The officer let go of my arm and said, "Listen, we know who you are. We've been to your house before. We know this is some stupid joke, but we had to come make sure everything was okay. Do you have any idea who might have done this? I said, I have no clue. I don't even know how they knew I was here. He asked if I had posted anything online, and I said no. Then it clicked. Oh, wait, I said. My girlfriend posted something. He nodded and said, yeah, well, you might want to talk to her about not doing that anymore because it's clearly a problem. I agreed, and after that, the cops just left. They all got in their cars and drove away. It was the fastest swatting I had ever seen. They knew who I was because around this time I had already been swatted at my house by some idiot on Twitch. So they knew it was probably another prank, but they still had to respond. After they left, I walked back into the restaurant. Everyone was staring at me like I was a criminal. The entire staff, all the customers. 11 cops had just shown up for me and then let me go, so they were definitely confused and probably a little scared. I went back to the table and my girlfriend looked at me, worried. What happened? What was that about? I said, somebody swatted me here. She was shocked. Swatted you? Why? I shrugged. Because people suck. She asked if it had happened before and I told her, yeah, at my house. That's the only reason they knew who I was and didn't arrest me or take me in for questioning. She asked, how did they know you were here? I said, my guess is you posted on Facebook and some stalker fan has you on Facebook. Immediately she looked horrified. Oh my God, Austin, I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about that. I told her it was okay. I didn't think about it either. I'm not mad. It could have gone a lot worse. Just delete the post and from now on, let's not post where we are until after we leave. She agreed, deleted the post, and even ended up deleting her entire Facebook. She was worried that someone on her friends list was a stalker, so she started fresh with a new account. After that, we never got swatted in public again, and no one swatted her at her house either. Weirdly, about a week later, she got some pizzas sent to her door. It was like 3 pizzas that she didn't order, so clearly the stalker knew her address too. But after that, nothing else happened. No more swatting, no more random pizzas. Things went back to normal. This experience taught me a pretty valuable lesson. Never post your location while you're still there if you have any kind of following. It could have ended up a lot worse, but luckily, everything worked out. Anyway, that's the story of how somebody swatted me and my girlfriend. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like on the video if you did, feel free to leave your story times in the comments, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? Austin here, or Luna. Today, I've got a pretty crazy story for you. Definitely not one of my proudest moments, but it's a wild one. If you enjoy this story time, leave a like on the video, and let's get into it. So, today's story takes place when I was 18 years old, about a month after I turned 18. I was renting an Airbnb in my hometown because I wasn't quite ready to move out yet, but I wanted some me time. I rented my own Airbnb for a couple of weeks, just 10 minutes away from where my mom lived. I moved my setup there, brought my stuff over, and just wanted to chill for 2 weeks. Kind of feel out what it was like to live on my own for the first time. While I was staying there, I wasn't really alone much at all. I pretty much invited friends over every single day. We'd hang out, order food, and honestly just trash the place. It was a bunch of 18-year-olds being 18-year-olds, you know what I mean? Anyway, this all starts off on the 4th day of me living there. It was my 4th day in the Airbnb. I woke up in the morning, 2 of my friends had spent the night and were in the guest room. We all woke up around the same time, went downstairs and made breakfast. While we were eating, I got a call from the Airbnb owner. I thought, okay, what could this be about? Am I in trouble or something? I answered the phone and the owner said, Austin, is this you? I replied, yep, this is Austin. He said, hey, I forgot to tell you when I checked you into the Airbnb, the basement has a security camera set up. If you ever need to use the security cameras, they're downstairs. I said, oh, I had no idea. I didn't even know there was a basement. He continued, yeah, there's a bunch of monitors down there that show different camera angles, front of the house, sides, backyard. There's also a laundry machine if you need to do laundry. I replied, all right, cool, good to know. He asked if everything was going well, and I said it was. Then we hung up. After that call, I went downstairs to check it out. He wasn't kidding. There were 5 monitors showing different camera angles around the house, giving a full 360-degree view. It was good to know in case something happened, but I figured I wouldn't need to use them much, except maybe for laundry. So I went back upstairs and hung out for a bit before my friends and I decided to head to the mall. We spent most of the day out of the house. Now, here's where things get interesting. About 2 hours after we left the house, we were at the mall getting lunch. While we were eating, I got a text from the Airbnb owner saying, hey, call me ASAP. Before I could even respond, he sent another text, emergency. I immediately called him and he picked up, sounding really worried. He asked, Austin, are you at the house right now? I said, no, we're out getting food. He let out a sigh of relief and said, Oh, thank fuck. Someone broke in. I was stunned. What? He continued. Yeah, someone's in the house right now. Is anyone home? I told him, no, we're all out. He said, all right, well, the cops are on their way. I got a notification on my phone that someone was at the door, and then I saw them on the cameras breaking in. Apparently, the guy had an app on his phone to check the cameras, and he saw someone breaking in through the front window. He called the cops right away, then called me. He told me not to go back to the house until the cops arrived and to head back in about 10-15 minutes. So that's what we did. We finished our food, got in the car, and drove back to the Airbnb. When we got there were about 10 cops outside. Absolute chaos. We got out of the car, and one of the cops came up to us and asked, "You guys must be the guests?" We said yes, and he asked, "Which one of you is Austin?" I said, "That's me." He asked if it was just my stuff inside or if my friends had belongings in there too. I told him my friends had some clothes inside, but I had more valuable stuff. My PC, 2 monitors, and some other things, probably worth around 3 or 4 grand. The cop said, "Alright, we'll take a walk inside together. You can look around and let us know if anything's missing." Just as I was about to head inside, the Airbnb owner pulled up. He lived about 30 minutes away, so he arrived a bit after us. He spoke to the cops, and then we all went in together to assess the situation. I couldn't believe my eyes when we walked in. Nothing was stolen. My PC, my monitors, the TV, everything was still there. My clothes, my friend's clothes, even my friend's necklace that was left on the counter, all untouched. The only thing this thief took was an old chandelier from the garage. It was dusty, broken, and apparently worth nothing, fake diamonds and all, according to the owner. It was the weirdest thing. The thief didn't take the TV, didn't take anything valuable, just that chandelier. We figured it was probably because most of the valuable stuff was too bulky to carry on foot. Even if he had taken the TV, it would have been super obvious to any cops driving by. Some guy running down the street with a giant flat screen would be pretty suspicious. I remembered the security cameras, so I asked the owner and the cops if we could check them. The cops said they had already seen the footage, but they took us downstairs to watch it again. The footage showed the guy opening the front window, climbing in, walking around for a bit, and then leaving with the chandelier. It was ridiculous. He was clearly not a good thief. The cops never caught him, so I guess he got away with it. Oh, and I should mention, I didn't leave that window unlocked. The window lock was broken. The owner said he was trying to get it fixed, but it was just bad timing. Either way, the thief got away with just a chandelier, and that was it. They never found him. He kinda looked homeless, so my guess is he probably took it to a pawn shop and got next to nothing for it. Maybe bought some food or something. In the end, everything worked out. No one was hurt, nothing valuable was taken, and the Airbnb owner felt so bad that he let me stay for free for the rest of the time I had booked. He didn't have to do that. He was the one who lost something, but I think he felt bad that we got so scared, so he cut us a deal. Anyway, that's the story. Moral of the story, lock your doors, lock your windows, and don't leave valuable shit lying around. I hope you guys enjoyed the story time. If you did, leave a like on the video. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. This is one of my all-time favorite stories to tell, probably ever. I actually thought I told this one years ago when I first started my channel, but I guess I didn't, and I'm kinda glad. Back then, I was a bit of a squeaker, or like, "Hey, what's up guys? It's Austin here." And I'm glad I'm older now, able to tell the story with more detail because back then, I sucked at telling stories. So, yeah, let's get into one of my favorite story times ever. Before we start real quick, I dropped an album not long ago and haven't been promoting it much lately, so if you haven't heard my music, go check out the new album. I think it's pretty sick. Anyway, let's jump into it. Today's story takes place when I was 15 years old. Yeah, very young and very stupid. Back then, I was probably the dumbest I've ever been in my life. I really only did 3 things: hang out with my friends as much as I could, play as much Xbox 360 as possible, and smoke a lot of weed for a 15-year-old. I used to argue with everyone who told me it was a bad idea, saying, nah, it's fine. But looking back, a lot of them were probably right. At 15, you're still developing, and I smoked so much that I started developing crazy panic attacks and anxiety. From the day of my first panic attack to now, I still deal with them. I think if I just waited a few more years, maybe until I was 18, I wouldn't have had as much anxiety. But that's beside the point. Can't change the past, just giving you some insight on my experience and maybe what not to do. Anyway, yeah, I really only did those 3 things: smoke, play video games, and hang out with friends. I was also definitely disobeying my parents a lot back then. I was kind of a little shit. One Thursday night in January, it was freezing cold, like 25 degrees, and I was sitting in my room watching Jersey Shore. It was about 1:15 in the morning, and I did not want to go to school the next day. On top of that, I had insomnia like I did most nights, so I couldn't sleep. I was sitting there, bored out of my mind and not tired at all, so I decided to text one of my friends who was also kind of a 15-year-old little shit like me. Let's call him John. I hit up John and said, "Yo, are you awake?" He replied, "Yeah, what's up?" I said, "Dude, I'm so fucking bored. Want to hang out?" Keep in mind, it's 1 a.m. on a Thursday, a school night. John lived like 2 blocks away, so I could walk to his house. He said, "Dude, it's 1 a.m. on a Thursday." I said, "Yeah, so what? That's never stopped you before. We've hung out later." He said, "Yeah, but if I get caught, I'm fucked." I replied, "Yeah, so am I. We'll risk it together." He asked, "What do you even want to do?" I said, "I don't know. Wanna smoke?" He asked if I had weed, and I told him, "You know I do." He said, "Okay, fine. Where do you want to meet?" I suggested the halfway point, and he agreed. The halfway point was literally halfway between our houses. We'd both leave at the same time and meet at this street corner. It saved us some walking time. So, I got up out of bed, grabbed a hoodie, put on some sweatpants, put on another hoodie because it was freezing, grabbed my backpack with my bowl and weed in it, and opened my window. I got a huge burst of 25-degree air, and I was freezing, so I grabbed a third hoodie. Then, I climbed out of my window, snuck out of my house, and quickly walked to the halfway point to meet John. I got there pretty quickly since it was a short walk. John was already there, and we were both freezing. We were like, "Alright, let's smoke." I pulled my bowl out of my backpack. It was already packed since I had it ready for the next day, and we started smoking together. Let me tell you, this sucked. First of all, the wind was blowing like crazy, making it almost impossible to light the bowl. John had to cup his hands around the lighter so it wouldn't blow out. It just sucked. We were freezing. My hands felt like they were getting frostbite. My nose was all red. It just didn't feel good to be out there, and it honestly didn't feel worth it. But that was most of my life at that age. A lot of shit felt like it wasn't worth it, but I did it anyway, just to say I did. So we kept smoking, and things were going okay, I guess. About 10 minutes later, after we finished, we just sat down in the snow and talked. We didn't want to go home yet, so we were just sitting there, freezing our asses off, chatting. All of a sudden, we saw an SUV coming towards us with really bright lights. We figured it was just someone driving by, someone who lived in the neighborhood. But as the car got closer, I quickly realized it was a cop car. The police SUV saw us, and we saw it. And just a few moments later, the police put their lights on and started slowing down next to us. John and I looked at each other like, "Oh shit," because we knew we were done. I had my backpack with my weed and bowl in it. We both reeked of weed, and we were both high. There was no hiding it. Before the cop even got out of his car, John and I just kind of accepted our fate. I looked at John and asked, "What do we do? What do we say?" He said, "Dude, we're caught red-handed. There's nothing we can do." I sighed, "Fuck, you're right. Do we just admit it?" He said, "Yeah, if he asks." I agreed. The cop got out of his car, walked over to us and asked, "What are you boys doing out so late in the cold like this?" John and I looked at each other, then back at the cop. I started talking. I don't know. We just wanted to meet up and hang out." He asked, "Don't you guys have school tomorrow?" We said, "Yeah, but we'll still go. We're not going to miss the bus or anything. We're just hanging out. We live down the street from each other." The cop asked, "Do your parents know you're out here this late?" I really didn't care about lying, so I told the truth. "Honestly, no. We both snuck out. We're just hanging out for a few minutes, then we're going home." The cop nodded and asked, "Anything else you boys are doing out here? Anything illegal?" John and I looked at each other. Neither of us wanted to say it, but John spoke up. "We may have smoked a little bit." The cop asked, "Smoked what?" I said, "Just a little bit of weed." He nodded and said, "Okay, can I see what you have?" I said, "Sure," and opened my backpack. I pulled out my bowl and the small bag of weed I had, maybe $20 worth. The cop took it, shined his flashlight on it, examined it for like 2 seconds, then handed it back to me. He said, "Okay, thank you." I asked, "You want me to put this back in my bag?" He said, "Yeah, probably a good idea." I was so confused. I thought he was going to confiscate my bag, but he didn't. The cop said, "Alright, listen, since you boys were honest with me, I'm not going to go home and tell your parents, and I'm not going to take your stuff. I know what it's like to be a teenager, we've all been there. But listen, hanging out on this street corner in the middle of the night isn't safe. I don't know what would happen if I left you guys here alone. You could get mugged, robbed, or freeze to death. You really should just be home, okay? So can you promise me you'll go home and not hang out here this late anymore?" John and I nodded and said, "Yeah, of course." He said, "Okay, I'm going to take you guys home now." We agreed. We got in the cop car and he drove us back to our houses, dropping us off one by one. I climbed back through my window and John did the same at his place. We both went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and genuinely thought it was all a dream, like some weird fever dream or something. I checked my phone and John had texted me, "Yo, last night was crazy." That's when I realized it actually happened. I still had my weed and my bowl, which was nuts because most cops would have confiscated it since it was illegal back then. So yeah, moral of the story, don't be like dumbass 15-year-old Luna. But all in all, it could have gone a lot worse, and I'm glad it didn't. I got really lucky. I hope you guys enjoyed the story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video, feel free to leave your story times in the comments, and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace. Yo, what's good guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Before I dive into today's story, I just gotta take a moment to thank you all. I've been trying not to talk about music too much on here because I know a lot of you are here just for the stories. But I have to say, the new album had some of the craziest first day streaming numbers I've ever seen. Thank you so much for checking it out, listening, and streaming. It means the world to me. If you haven't heard it yet, I'll leave it as the first link in the description. Anyway, thanks again, I love you all. Now, let's get into this story because it's one I've been waiting to tell for a while. So today's story is a mix of two things that a lot of you have been asking about: psychedelics and my dad. I get so many questions asking if I have more tripping stories, and also if I have stories involving my dad. And while I don't talk about my dad much, it's not because we have a bad relationship or anything. I just tend to keep him out of the spotlight since he's a pretty private guy. My mom, on the other hand, doesn't mind as much, and I've come to realize my dad doesn't really care either. So here we are. This story takes place back in 2017. At this point in my life, I had moved out to LA, and I was bouncing back and forth between LA and New York. I'd fly back to New York for a few weeks, then go back to LA, and sometimes I'd be in one place for a couple of months before switching again. It was a constant back and forth, and it was kinda tiring, but I loved it. One night, I decided to fly back to New York by surprise to visit my parents and family. I got back to New York around 11 p.m., flew straight from LA, and decided to call my dad to let him know I was home. He was like, "Oh shit, you should come stay with me for a couple of days." So I agreed, and I headed over to his place. After about 20 minutes of being there, I hit up some of my friends who I hadn't seen in a while. I was like, "Yo, I'm home, let's hang out soon." One of my friends, Anthony, we'll call him Ant, was especially hyped to see me. He wanted to hang out that night. He was like, "Bro, I haven't seen you in forever, let's kick it right now." I didn't have any plans, so I said, "Why not?" Anthony came over to my dad's place, and we chilled in the living room for a couple of hours. My dad went to bed, so it was just us trying to figure out what to do to kill some time. We were hungry, and there wasn't much open that late, so Ant had the bright idea to go to Denny's. I mean, it wasn't the best food, but it was food, and it was open, so I said, "Fuck it, let's go." We drove to Denny's, hung out there for about an hour, just talking about what we'd been up to since I was last home. Towards the end of our late dinner, or early breakfast, depending on how you see it, Anthony asked me, "Yo, do you still do any psychedelics? Smoke weed or anything?" I told him, "Honestly, right now I just smoke a bit. That's about it." He nodded and was like, Cool. So, no acid or anything?" I told him no, and he kind of paused before saying, "Well, I may have picked some up a couple of days ago, and I've been waiting for the right person to do it with. I feel like you'd be that person." I had to ask him, "Did you get it from a safe source? Like, is it trustworthy, not some sketchy shit?" He reassured me saying, "Yeah bro, it's all good. I've had it before, it's legit. But seriously, no pressure if you're not feeling it." And honestly, shout out to Anthony for being that kind of friend, not pressuring me, just putting it out there. That's the type of energy you need when it comes to things like this. And weirdly, his chill attitude actually made me want to do it. At first I was like, "I don't know man," but eventually I just thought, fuck it, why not? So after we finished at Denny's, we went back to my dad's house and we each dropped a tab in the living room while my dad was sleeping upstairs. I can't lie, right after we did it, I started to feel some regret. I was jet lagged, tired, and at my dad's house. It wasn't exactly the ideal situation or environment for a trip, but there was no turning back at that point. We had already taken the tabs, so we just had to ride it out. About an hour, maybe 2 hours later, it really started kicking in. Surprisingly, I was handling it pretty well. The visuals were there and I was definitely seeing and hearing some stuff, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was actually pretty chill and positive. After a while, I got this urge to go outside. Like, I really wanted to be surrounded by nature. My dad's house had a nature trail behind it, and I thought it would be perfect to just walk around in the woods, listen to music, and enjoy the vibe. So, I quietly snuck into my dad's room and stole his Bluetooth speaker, thankfully without waking him up. And then I went back to Anthony and said, "Yo, let's hit the nature trail and listen to some music." He was down, so we grabbed the speaker, left the house, and headed out. It was honestly a pretty dope experience. We were walking down this quiet, woodsy path surrounded by trees and stars. It was dark, but in the best way possible. Just us, the music, and nature. Everything was going great until my phone started ringing. It was my dad, and of course that kind of killed the vibe a little because the last thing I wanted to do was talk to my dad while I was tripping. But I answered, trying to stay cool. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" He asked where I was, and I told him, "Oh, I'm just walking the nature trail behind the house with Anthony, listening to some music." He goes, "Oh, Anthony, huh? Makes sense." I was confused, like, "What do you mean makes sense?" He paused and then said, "Well, either you or Anthony left something on my table before you left. Wanna guess what it is?" I looked over at Anthony, and he was patting his pockets with this oh shit look on his face. He realized he had left the tabs on the table. I was like, "Bro, you left the tabs behind? Seriously?" He nodded, and I just groaned. I went back on the phone and said, yeah, sorry, Anthony did that." My dad just sighed and said, "Yeah, nice. Just get that shit out of my house, okay? And please be safe. Don't go far. Don't drive." I was just relieved he wasn't furious. I told him, "Yeah, we're not going anywhere, don't worry." He goes, "Alright, good. I had my fun back in the day, so I get it, but just be smart about it." And that was it. He hung up, and I looked at Anthony, and we both just kind of laughed in relief. My dad was mad chill about it, which made the rest of the trip a lot easier. We walked for a while longer, then went back to the house, and Anthony grabbed the tabs and put them in his car. The rest of the night we just chilled, watched Netflix, and eventually crashed in the living room. The next morning was a little awkward. At breakfast, my dad sat down with us and, in true dad fashion, was like, "So, how was the trip?" Anthony and I just kind of looked at each other and said, "It was mild." My dad just laughed and then told us a story about his own craziest trip back in the day. Honestly, it was kind of cool hearing that side of him. It was like getting a glimpse of the original Luna in a way, just listening to one of his stories. So yeah, everything ended up being fine. If my mom had found those tabs instead of my dad, I guarantee she would have flushed them and found a way to ground me even though I was an adult. But my dad was chill and understanding, so shout out to him for that. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this story. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and feel free to share your own stories in the comments. And of course, if you're new here, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Yo, what's good everyone? It's Austin here, or Luna. So today's story time is really giving me old Luna vibes, you know? Like this is some 2016 type stuff right here, and I honestly can't believe I never uploaded this story back then. But hey, better late than never, right? Also, quick side note, today happens to be my birthday, so that's pretty cool. If you guys want to give me the best birthday gift ever, you should definitely hit that first link in the description and pre-save my new album that's dropping tonight. 7 tracks, all bangers, I promise. If you like my earlier songs or the first album, you'll definitely enjoy this one. And you know what? If we can hit 3,000 pre-saves, I'll do a vlog sometime next week because I haven't done one in ages, and I think it'd be really dope. So yeah, that link is down there if you want to help me out. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into today's story, which is definitely a wild one. Today's story takes us back to 2016, a very interesting year for me. A lot happened, and it was probably the dumbest I've ever been. If you guys were around YouTube back in 2016, following me or my friends, you know that was the era of hype beasts and everyone just following trends, especially when it came to fashion and behavior. A lot of people were doing whatever their favorite rappers were doing back then, and I was definitely one of those people, unfortunately. I mean, I dressed like them, acted like them, even picked up on their habits, some of which were just straight up dumb. So yeah, in 2016, I decided to try lean again. Now let me be clear, do not mess around with that shit. Seriously, just don't. Lean is bad news straight up, but back then I was dumb, easily influenced and trying to emulate the music and lifestyle I was into. So I hit up a friend of mine who dealt with that kind of stuff, and I asked if he knew where I could get lean. He did, and I ended up buying some. I went over to his place and his friend had it. I paid about $300 for however much it was. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was a decent bit. Still, $300 was a lot, and honestly, I probably got ripped off, but I was too naive to care. After I bought it, I went back home, and I wasn't planning on using it right away. I figured I'd wait for a day when I'd have the house to myself. Didn't want my mom walking in on me looking like a zombie, you know? So, I hid the bottle under my bed and waited. Fast forward 2 days, it was around 6 p.m, and I was just chilling in my room, messing around on my computer. My mom was home, and everything was pretty normal. Then one of my friends hit me up. We'll just call him Mike. Mike said he was near my house and about to head to Best Buy, and he asked if I wanted to tag along. I had no reason to go, but I was bored, so I figured why not? I told my mom I was heading out, and she was like, "Okay, but when you get back, can you clean your room?" My room was a mess, so I said, "Yeah, sure," and left. So Mike picked me up and we went to Best Buy. We were there for maybe 30 minutes and then we grabbed some food. After that, he dropped me back off at my house. I walked in, went straight to my room, and, to my surprise, my room was spotless. My mom had decided to clean it for me while I was out, and the moment I saw that, my heart sank. My first thought was, "Oh shit, did she find the lean?" I rushed over to my bed, looked underneath, and sure enough, the bottle was gone. My mom had found it. I was freaking out because not only did she find it, but I had no idea where it was now, and I didn't know how much trouble I was in. A few minutes later, my mom walked into my room. She asked, "Do you like the clean room?" I was like, "Yeah, thank you so much. I didn't think you'd do that for me." She smiled, then held up the bottle and said, "Wanna tell me what this is?" My stomach dropped. I stammered, it's just rubbing alcohol." She shot me this look and said, "Don't bullshit me. It's not rubbing alcohol. I smelled it. What is it really?" I sighed and admitted, "Okay, it's codeine." She stared at me and said, "Codeine? Do you have a fucking cough or something?" I shook my head. "No." She replied, "Yeah, no shit. So why do you have it?" All I could say was, "Because I'm stupid." She looked disappointed and asked, "Are you selling it? Are you using it for fun? What's the deal?" I told her the truth. I bought it from a friend and hadn't touched it yet. I was planning on trying it, but I hadn't gotten around to it. She took a deep breath and said, "Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to throw this away and I'm going to check your phone to see who you got this from. You're not going to see them anymore. And if I ever find anything like this under your bed again, I'm calling the cops." I nodded and said, "Got it." She walked out, and honestly, I expected her to ground me or take everything away, but she didn't. She just made it very clear that if I fucked up again, there would be serious consequences. And that was enough for me. I never messed with lean again after that. I came to my senses and realized how dumb it was. Looking back, I can't believe I even considered it. But yeah, she checked my phone logs, and since I had so many recent calls with different friends, she never figured out who sold it to me. I ended up distancing myself from that crowd anyway. They weren't exactly the best influences. In the end, everything worked out. I learned a valuable lesson. Don't be an idiot and mess around with dangerous shit. Lean is not worth it, and neither is trying to live up to some stupid hype. So, yeah, moral of the story, don't be like 2016 Luna. He was a dumbass. But hey, at least the videos from back then were pretty entertaining, right? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. I'm about to go watch the Five Nights at Freddy's movie now. Hopefully it's good and I don't end up scared of the animatronics. I'll let you guys know what I think in tomorrow's video if you're interested. See you all tomorrow. Peace out, everybody. Alright, so I've done some pretty stupid shit throughout my childhood, especially during my school years, and I've shared a lot of those moments here before. But this one I haven't told yet, and I don't even know why. But it's time. Hope you enjoy it, and if you do, don't forget to leave a like. Let's get into it. So, today's story takes place back when I was in 9th grade, freshman year. I was at a new school. I don't talk much about this period because, honestly, it was pretty short-lived. I started high school at this new public school, and it wasn't exactly the best. It had a reputation, one of those schools full of kids who were just always getting into trouble, like it was the bad kids' school, if that makes sense. But I didn't really care. My plan was to keep my head down, mind my business, and pass my classes. Obviously that didn't work out since, well, here I am now, without a high school diploma. But whatever, that's besides the point. Anyway, yeah, I started at this new school, and for the first month or so, it wasn't too bad. Pretty normal stuff. But the second month, that's when things went to complete shit, and let me tell you how it all went down. So, I met this kid during my first week at the school. Let's call him Tyler. Tyler was kinda like me, a shy kid, but once you got to know him, he was actually really cool. He became one of my best friends there pretty quickly. But there was also something about Tyler that I saw in myself. He wasn't always the best at thinking before acting. Like, he'd do things just for the thrill or because it seemed funny in the moment, without really considering the consequences. And yeah, that was basically me too back then. One day, during my second month at this school, Tyler comes up to my locker in the morning while I'm getting my books. He's like, "Yo, dude, you're never gonna guess what I bought last night and brought to school." I'm like, "What?" And Tyler pulls out this bag from his backpack, and inside it, I kid you not, there are like 200 live crickets. Just a whole bag of crickets, all of them chirping and making noise. You could hear them through the bag, and I'm just staring at him like, "Bro, why the fuck do you have 200 crickets in your backpack at school?" He goes, "Bro, I was getting food for my reptiles last night, and I thought it'd be hilarious to bring some extra ones to school, you know, to prank the teachers or something." I asked, "What do you mean, prank the teachers? What are you gonna do? Let them loose in the school?" And right as I said that, he gets this huge grin on his face, and I'm like, "Tyler, are you actually planning on letting those crickets go?" He just shrugs and says, "Maybe." I was like, "Dude, are you serious right now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking of going into the bathroom and letting them all go. They'll end up all over the hallway and freak everyone out." Now, the logical side of me was like, tell Tyler this is a horrible idea. But the other side of me, the part that wanted a good laugh, was like, okay, this is actually kind of funny. So I ended up saying both. I was like, Tyler, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. But it would be funny as hell. He laughed and said, no, I'm doing it, man. I'm gonna do it. I was like, alright, just please don't tell anyone I had anything to do with it. And he was like, yeah, don't worry, I got you. Fast forward to a couple of periods later, I'm in my English class. I'm just reading a book, half asleep, kind of drifting off. Then, suddenly, the classroom door opens and the security guard walks in. He says, Austin, I need you to come with me. And I'm like, okay. So I get up and follow him out of the room. And I can't lie, I was nervous as hell. I had no idea what I did. And that's never a good feeling. If you've ever been pulled out of class by security or a principal, you know what I'm talking about. Your mind just starts racing, wondering if you're in trouble and what you could have done. So, the security guard is walking me to the principal's office, and I ask him, do you know what this is about? He says he doesn't know. He was just told to bring me to the office. So now I'm even more anxious because even the security guy doesn't know what's up. We get to the principal's office and he brings me inside, sits me down and leaves. Now it's just me and the principal. And let me tell you, this dude looks pissed. He looks so mad. I'm sitting there like, so how's it going? And he just stares at me and says, Austin, I'm not doing good. And I'm sure you know why I'm not doing good, but I'll give you the chance to admit it yourself. I'm like, sir, I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. And I really didn't at first. I had completely forgotten about the cricket thing. It just wasn't on my mind at all. So, he says, well, a student went to use the bathroom today, and when he did, there were hundreds of crickets all over the floor and all over the hallway leading up to the bathroom. Care to tell me if you know anything about that, Austin? And suddenly, it hit me. My eyes went wide, and I knew I probably looked guilty as hell. The principal just nods and says, oh, so now you remember? Now you know why I'm mad. I was like, sir, I swear, I had nothing to do with that. He goes, really? Because we checked the cameras and we saw you and Tyler talking at your locker this morning. We saw him show you the bag of crickets. And then, a couple of hours later, crickets are all over the school. So, you really had nothing to do with that? I said, yes, Tyler told me about the crickets, but I told him it was a stupid idea. I told him not to involve me if he did anything with them. I promise, I had nothing to do with it. The principal just shook his head and said, I don't believe you, Austin. I don't believe you at all. I said, sir, check the cameras again. You'll see it was only Tyler who went into the bathroom. I didn't do anything. He just sighed and said, oh, we will be checking. Trust me. Then, right when things were getting tense, someone called him out of the office. I think it was one of the vice principals or maybe another security guard. So the principal stands up and says, stay right there. I'll be back. And he walks out, leaving me alone in his office. And I'm just sitting there, wondering what's going to happen to me. Am I getting suspended, expelled, or am I not in trouble at all since I technically didn't do anything? I had no idea what to expect. But he was gone for a while. Minutes went by and he still wasn't back. And the longer I sat there, the more anxious I got. My paranoia was just building up. And eventually I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not sitting here any longer. So I looked over at the window in his office and I thought, I'm getting the hell out of here. I walked over, pulled the fire escape latch, opened the window, and crawled out. I jumped down onto the grass outside. It wasn't a big drop, it was the first floor, so it was just a couple of feet. I landed on the grass and I just took off. I walked into the woods behind the school and just kept going until I was far enough away. I ended up going to a burger joint across the street, grabbing some food and eating lunch by myself. But of course, it didn't take long for my phone to start blowing up. My mom called and she was pissed. She was like, why am I getting calls from the school saying you left the principal's office by jumping out a window? I was like, yeah, I was getting blamed for something I didn't do, and I got really anxious, so I just left. She was like, you can't do that, Austin. You went from not being in any trouble to being in a lot of trouble. I said, I know it was stupid, but I panicked. She wasn't having it. She just said, I don't care, you're grounded. So I got grounded for a month. When I got home that night, she took away all my electronics, everything, and on top of that, I got kicked out of the school. Straight up expelled just like that. Oh, and as for Tyler, I talked to him a couple of days later to find out what happened to him. Turns out he got expelled too, and his parents were so pissed and embarrassed that they put him in a private school. He had to wear a uniform and everything because they wanted to make sure he behaved. So yeah, that sucked for him. What started off as me not being in any trouble at all ended with me getting into a ton of trouble just because I panicked and left. If I had just stayed in that office, the principal probably would have come back, checked the cameras, and realized I wasn't involved. He might have just told me to stay away from Tyler and kids like him, but no, I had to go and jump out a window like an idiot, and that got me expelled. So yeah, that's how I got expelled from that school faster than any other time. Moral of the story, don't be like me back then. Just stay put and let things play out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your own story times in the comments and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace.